The untouchable True School Sports Empire proudly presents something the boxing games are missing. Hey, what's going on? It's your boy BT, and I came here to talk some boxing with the thousands of True School Sports subscribers. And yes, guys, I'm back once again. It is everybody's favorite late night boxing programming. True School After Dark. We don't got no HBO After Dark, so we got True School After Dark. So I'm going to be here for like 2 hours talking to you guys about the latest and greatest in the fight game. You know, it is a bit of a slow day today. And tomorrow I'm going to give myself the day off because I really need it. I've been working very, very hard ever since I got back home from camp and making content, things like that. So I'm looking very forward to a nice day off tomorrow. But nonetheless, we're here and we're going to have a great time. And we're going to try to make sense of some things that are going on in boxing because, you know, you got Gervonta Davis resurfacing. He's over here in the club, dancing with pretty, wavy, light-skinned women, right? You know, that's one thing. We'll talk about that, and we'll talk about mainly like when can we expect Gervonta Davis back in the ring, and I'll give you guys some personal insights on that. Ryan Garcia recently he went on the Jimmy Fallon show, and he had the whole WBC title with him, and he mentioned the Conor Benn fight. But then I went on Instagram after all that, and Keith Connolly, who's Conor Benn's manager, stated that, you know, hey, the fight's not finalized yet, even though Ryan Garcia went and announced it on Jimmy Fallon. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about some stuff going on with this weekend's card with Usyk and Giashov and things like that. So I don't listen. Being honest, I don't have a lot of talking points today, but I'm here. I done showed up for you guys today. So make sure you guys smash that like button. Definitely subscribe. Definitely super chat because we're here giving you all that world-class boxing talk on the fast days, the slow days, the regular days, as many days as possible. All right. So definitely good to be here. Definitely good to be seen. Make sure you guys let your thoughts be known in the comments down below. Let me know what city, what state you guys are watching from, or what country you're watching from, because I want to see how international we are on the broadcast. And definitely yeah, all that stuff. So anyway, before I even get into my talking points, because I don't got that many today. I got like maybe 5. Let me take some time to acknowledge the fine folks that are already here, making their presence and their thoughts known. So we got my main man, TSM Harder in the building, longtime viewer. He says, "What's up, BT? It seems like Tank is just enjoying life and he's done with boxing." Now, I'll get to that in a second, but he's not done. He's not as done with boxing as you guys think, from what I've heard, because I've got some pretty good sources over at PBC, people that I talked to that work for PBC that had to deal with Tank. You know, I've heard that he does have a more reserved approach, but I have heard that, you know, he is targeting a particular fight, and I haven't heard a date, I haven't heard a timetable, but he has an idea of what he wants to do, right? And I'll get to that later on. But shout out to Jazz, my main man in the Bay Area. The Bay Area is in the building. He says he didn't learn anything from Adrian Broner. And, you know, look, history has a way of repeating itself in boxing. So I'll say this. Tank has problems. We all have problems. We all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. But I don't think he's going to be as degenerate of like an alcoholic as Adrian Broner. Adrian Broner is a degenerate alcoholic. Like, he really needs help in the worst way possible. Tank has his problems, but I don't think alcoholism is one of them. But that's just my opinion. Mad Simple says, "Bottle full of bub. My mom got what you need." He says, "I guess Ryan Garcia isn't canceled anymore." No. People have short memories. You know, social media and just this world in general, people have very short memories. And a lot of times, this cancel culture, it's just a bunch of snowflakes getting hurt. But in Ryan's case, Ryan said some bullshit. Ryan said a lot of things that you know, really probably should have got him canceled. But, you know, I'm not judge, jury, executioner. I'm just telling y'all what it is. Last 2 comments, and then I'll get into Tank here in a second. I want to give people some time to file in here and join the live. But while Raw Dog says Tank's heart is not in it anymore, it's easy to see. I mean, it was easy to see in the Lamont Roach fight. But again, you know, money talks and bullshit walks, and Tank can still generate a lot of money because Tank can draw a lot of fans. And there's still some pretty big fights out there for him, especially like 3 matches against Pitbull Cruz and or Lamont Roach. I'm sure if those fights got signed tomorrow or later today, people will talk about it. It would be the kind of story that transcends the realms of the hardcore box community. People who don't normally watch or care about boxing would care because it involves Gervonta Davis. So I'm not ruling what you say out. And part of me does believe that, but I also know that Gervonta Davis can still make a lot of money, and that money will make anybody come back. Dominic says, last month Ryan said he was fighting Tio next, and it was official. Now he's saying Conor Benn. I don't know if I believe him, but if it does, Ryan Garcia by stoppage. So yeah, it's not official. Just so you guys know, it's not official because I was live here. The last live we did, it just so happened to be at the same time as Ryan Garcia's appearance on the Jimmy Fallon show. And right when I got off here, I went on Instagram, and Keith Connolly, I follow him on Instagram. Keith Connolly, who's the manager of Conor Benn, he pretty much stated that the fight's not done yet, but if it does get done, it's a big money fight. It's one of those big money fights. So if the manager of Conor Benn is saying that, it means the fight ain't done. So people shouldn't jump the gun. I think Ryan Garcia is just trying to announce what he would like to happen. But if the manager of one of the fighters is saying it's not done, then it's not done. That's just what it is. So, nonetheless, guys, let me get into it, man. Let me get into like one of the main talking points of this live. Make sure you guys smash a like button. If you guys comment and I don't get to it right away, I will get into it in between each talking point. As you guys know, make sure you smash a like button. Now we will go to screen share because Gervonta Davis is going viral today. It's been a pretty slow news day in boxing. I'm on social media quite frequently, probably too much for my health, if I'm being honest with you, for more than I should be. But nonetheless, this is Gervonta Davis. He was in the club. He resurfaced in the club, and look, it's none of my business. I'm not one of these guys that feels that fighters got to be in the gym 24/7, because fighters have lives too. And the only time a fighter really shouldn't be doing any of this is if they're in camp. If you're in camp, you shouldn't be in the club. But Tank Davis is not. He's not in camp. There's no fight signed. There's no fight announced. So he's doing what everybody does when you have a lot of trauma in life and you're trying to heal and you're trying to find your way. You go, you get around some beautiful, light-skinned, wavy women, and you sing to Justin Bieber, and you have a good time. That's what he's doing. So this made a lot of headlines today, and shout out to Tank, man. You gotta have fun. You gotta unwind. You gotta have some downtime to as a fighter to eventually just decompress. But my thing is, we haven't seen Tank since the Lamont Roach fight, so he's had quite a lot of time to decompress. He's had well over a year and some change. Obviously, there's been a lot of things outside the ring in regards to like domestic violence and things like that, and all that. But he hasn't been in the actual boxing ring since last March when he fought Lamont Roach. And so that begs the question of when and if we are going to see Gervonta Davis back in the ring again. Now, I'll tell you guys this. I covered back in Vegas roughly almost 3 weeks ago now. I was there ringside, and I did cover Dave Benavidez versus Zoto Ramirez. And I had a conversation with one of the top guys at PBC. I won't say his name, but he pretty much told me that right now Tank has two options, and those two options are as such: he can either A, rematch Lamont Roach, or B, rematch Pitbull Cruz. Now, from what I've been told, and I don't know if this is true or not. I'm just going off of what one of the guys at PBC told me. But from what I was told, Gervonta Davis is feeling very enticed to take the Pitbull Cruz rematch, not just because it's a big money fight, not just because the fight, was a very good fight the first time, but also, Lamont Roach has had a fight with Pitbull Cruz. In the time that Tank has fought Roach, Roach fought Pitbull Cruz, and that was in December of last year, and Roach got a draw on that fight. So Tank, from what I was told, Tank is feeling enticed to take the Pitbull Cruz rematch, not just because it's a big fight, but also because it would be a very petty way of getting back at Lamont Roach. Lamont Roach, who has been very, very vocal and has been capitalizing off of these big fights with Tank and with Pitbull Cruz. That's what I'm hearing. He's leaning towards that, but I've also heard that he's not really as dedicated to the sport as you would think. I've had, in the last calendar year, I've had friends of mine spar him, and I've got reports back about that. So, I think it was Raw Dog that said it in the chat earlier. Raw Dog said that Gervonta Davis is his heart's not in it no more. And he was already showing signs of this before he fought Lamont Roach. Like, I remember he was doing the interviews talking about how he wanted to go to therapy and kind of clean his life up because he got a daughter now. And I thought those things were very commendable by Tank, because Tank, I know a lot of boxers come from rough circumstances, but Tank's comes from very, very rough circumstances, like group homes. Just he really had it a little more rough than a lot of fighters. And I think he carries a lot more trauma than a lot of fighters in the fight game. And because of that, that's why you see a lot of these things inside and outside the ring in his behavior, right? So he's acknowledged these things. I think he's done a lot of introspection. And he's already made it known in the past, well before the Lamont Roach fight, that he wants to go to therapy to get these things fixed. And you know what? If he's not going to therapy, this is a hell of a therapy right here. Just being around the club, around these nice, bubbly, happy, light-skinned women, and it's part of the healing process. I've been there, Tank. So shout out to you, champ. Do what you got to do. But personally, for me, I hope Gervonta Davis can come back to the sport of boxing. I know there was a recent segment on the Porter Way podcast with Sean Porter, one of my guys, Sean Zattel, one of my guys. They were speaking about Gervonta Davis and how the sport has moved on without him, right? And of course, life stops for no man. Trains and buses, they keep going regardless of what you got going on. Life will go on, right? But if Gervonta Davis were to come back tomorrow, it is going to be a massive headline. It's going to generate a lot of buzz. And I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's intellectually honest to just throw Tank to the wayside. Tank has a lot of star power. He's one of the only fighters in America with any star power, in a day and age where in boxing struggles for a lot of eyeballs in America, because you got it's probably the 8th most popular sport in America behind baseball, American football, soccer, hockey, college football, college basketball, UFC. And maybe after that, maybe after all those sports, boxing might be the 8th most popular sport. So with that being said, it's become more niche over the years, especially now boxing moving all to the zone. A lot of the biggest fights are behind paywalls. So there's only a handful of fighters in the United States of America that can command any sort of attention outside the hardcore box community. And Gervonta Davis is one of them. And what that means is that he has real value, whether you like it or not. So yeah, sure, the sport moved on without Tank. But if Tank comes back, and if Tank gets focused, and if Tank really starts fighting, let's say twice a year again, then Gervonta Davis is going to leave his debt in this fight game. Make no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I'll tell you this right now. If Gervonta Davis gets active, let's say he fights Pitbull Cruz and he wins. Do you know how many fighters are going to start running their mouths and calling him out? You're going to hear Shakur Stevenson shooting off at the mouth. You're going to hear Keyshawn Davis shooting off at the mouth. Devin, well, Devin's at 47 now, but you know what I mean. Like, a lot of these guys are going to go ahead and want to fight Tank, because Tank Davis, he moves the needle, and so as it was highlighted in Virginia over the weekend, we know Shakur and Keyshawn are not going to fight each other because they're brothers, right? So we know they ain't brothers with Tank, and they've both called out Tank in the past. So boom, that would open up a potential mega fight for them or with Gervonta Davis if he is to come back, But I digress. Those are my thoughts on Tank. Those are my thoughts on just this whole thing that surfaced of him in the club having a good time, dancing with the pretty, wavy, light-skinned women, and probably going through a bit of a healing process himself. So yeah, I'll leave it at that, and I'll get to some comments. Shout out to everybody here. Make sure you guys smash that like button. We got Rudog says, decompress from what? I don't know, court cases. Court cases. He's had some problems outside the ring. They've been very well documented, so that could be it. Lance Meyer, what's good, champ? Good to see you. Bro, why have fighters to the light of Devin Haney besides Shakur Stevenson like he's an easy winnable fight? Bro, why have fighters took the light of Devin Haney besides Shakur? I don't know what you're trying to ask me, so please rephrase that. I'm not really sure what to make of that comment, but I appreciate you, champ. What do you think? What weight do you think that Gervonta Davis would fight at if he was at 140 pounds, or if he fought? I think Tank will fight at would it be 140? Probably it would probably have to be 140, because if you're fighting Pitbull Cruz, I mean Pitbull Cruz is a 140-pound fighter now. But Gervonta Davis still is the WBA champion in recess, so I could see a scenario where he fights at 135. We know that the WBA loves Tank, and they will bend to his will. They will go ahead and acquiesce to what he wants to do, because at the end of the day, let's be real, these sanctioning bodies, they want the 3%. And a guy like Gervonta Davis, a guy like Canelo Alvarez, a guy like Anthony Joshua, these guys are gonna allow these sanctioning bodies to keep a bigger percentage of that 3% they're gonna charge. So they're gonna bend. They're gonna do their thing. That's just the game. A man right here says, I'm not sure that Keyshawn beats Tank right now if they fight. Maybe not. I think it would be an intriguing fight, because Tank is a slow starter, but he's a pretty sharp, precise counter puncher. We've seen Keyshawn in the past, like in the first Albright fight, have some problems with counter punchers, albeit Tank is not as rangy as Albright. He's shorter, he's a southpaw, so it's a different look. But yeah, Tank's experience. Tank's fought some good fighters. I think it'd be a tough. It's still if he's dialed in, and I feel like now I'm starting to talk about Tank now the way people used to talk about Broner, 10 years ago, when they say, yeah, Broner was focused. If he's focused and he have a good camp and he come into shape, like all that stuff. I feel like, I'm getting to that place now with Gervonta Davis, where it's like, we know how talented he is. We know he's really good. We know he's one of the top fighters in and around his weight. But Gervonta Davis, he's chilling. He's not really fully, it appears, I'm not in camp on him, but it would appear, based on what we're seeing and based on the little things that I hear through the grapevine and that I know, that he's not really dialed in. This ain't 2017, Hey, Susan, what's good, champ? Do you think Tank can stop Pitbull this time without a broken hand, despite Pitbull having a great chin? That really just depends on what kind of condition he comes into the ring with. For a little bit of time, I'm going to say it was like around the time when Tank was fighting Hector Garcia, like 2023-ish. I remember Tank used to do, he used to spend some time of his training camps in South Florida, and he would go down to Stacey McKinley's gym. And as you guys know who follow me, Stacey McKinley is a very good, close personal friend of mine. Been knowing Stacey McKinley for the better part of 10 years now. Actually, really over 10 years, because I've known Stacey since I first got into covering boxing back in 2015. So we're talking about 11 years now. I've been knowing Stacey McKinley, and he's been around some of the greatest fighters that ever lived, like Mike Tyson, like Michael Nunn. Just a really sound boxing mind, right? And I talked to him. I did an interview on this channel back in 2023, because he had Tank in his gym a lot, and he said pretty much that Gervonta Davis has never ever been in his career, in his opinion, 100% in his best condition. That everything you probably ever seen in Tank was about 70%. That's how he feels. That's how he's felt. And so I'm saying that to say that if he fights Pitbull Cruz, he's gonna need to be above that 70% that Stacey McKinley talked about. He had to be in the best condition of his life, because although Pitbull Cruz is shorter than Tank, and people don't want to give Pitbull Cruz for certain credit for certain skills that he does have, he's very, like, he has a very tight, educated, high guard. As he saw in the first fight, it was a hard defense for Tank to penetrate. So I don't think he would, but if he wanted to, it would require a career best training camp and a career best performance. So I would lean towards no. Cardenas knows Tank and said Tank has been through a lot and just boxes to get money. Yeah, he has. I'm not going to tell the stories here, but you guys know me being close to Angelo and Miguel Leo. They used to see Tank Davis at amateur tournaments back in the day, and I know certain things about Tank from back then, and he's been through a lot of shit. We all have, but he's really, really been through more than I would say most fighters in boxing. Anybody who knows and just does any research on Baltimore, you'll have an idea of what he's went through. Tank might become the unified champion if Lamont beats Zepeda. Yeah, I would love to see Lamont Roach come out victorious in that fight. I like Lamont Roach. I'm a big Lamont Roach fan. I become a big Lamont Roach fan because Lamont Roach is one of these guys. He don't care. Like 130, 135, 140, you name the weight, as long as it's a good name and it makes sense. He's gonna fight you. Like I have so much respect for how he goes about his business, because he's one in a day and age where a lot of fighters doing a whole lot of flapping their gums. He actually stepped up to the plate and he delivers big fight after big fight after big fight. And it wasn't always like this for Lamont. Lamont didn't always have the backing, right? So I like to see him win because I feel like Lamont Roach, more than most fighters in boxing, is one of boxing's true warriors. But that's going to be a tough fight for him. He's not Shakur Stevenson, where he's going to be distance controlling and stepping back and utilizing the whole ring. That's not Lamont Roach's style. Lamont Roach comes from that Barry Hunter, head bangers, DC school of boxing, where you get in the pocket and you go and you get yours, right? And when you're fighting a guy like William Zepeda, who likes to get downhill on you, who's probably one of the most active volume punchers in boxing, it's gonna make it a hard night for you. When we saw the Pitbull fight, despite Lamont having a massive size advantage, Pitbull was the one that dropped him and seemed to be the stronger guy in terms of in the pocket. So it'll be interesting to see how he deals with that. Maybe the fact that this time he won't have a fighter who has such a low center of gravity, that might actually help him, because a lot of times people make a big deal about the size advantage, but when a guy is as short and as compact and as tight with his high guard as Pitbull Cruz is, that could be a very big thing to overcome, believe it or not. The untouchable, yes. Fix Electrons, good to see you, champ. Hope all is here. Joel, I see you, champ. Yeah, he was. He really was, and I've been trying to. I mean, I haven't texted him in like 2 or 3 months because I've been busy, but I gotta get him back on here. He agreed to come on here after the TO fight. I texted him after the TO lost, and he said he was gonna come back on here, and he just never did. And I called him, like, there was a week or two period where I was calling him plenty of times, and he just never got back to me. So at some point in time, Stacey McKinley will have to face the music, because I'll tell you right now, if you don't face it now, you'll have to face it probably by the end of this month, because I'm gonna be in South Florida. I'm gonna be in South Florida really soon, so I might pull up to the gym. And yes, congrats to Arsenal. Yes, in 20 plus years, they won the Premier League. So shout out to Arsenal. I got a lot of friends that support Arsenal Football Club, and good for them. One of the true great clubs in English football. What are my thoughts on Callum Peters? I haven't had a chance to watch him fight. I do know that he fought my boy Joshua James out there in Australia, and he beat him pretty soundly from what I heard. So I didn't watch that fight, but I've been hearing a lot of good things about him. When I have an opinion on him, I will let you know. But if what I can say is that if you can beat Joshua James in decisive fashion, which he did, that right there will say a lot about you, because a lot of guys have fought Joshua James that were supposed to be something in boxing, and they got found out. They got exposed, right? And so the only guy that really passed that Joshua James test with flying colors was Lester Martinez. By beating Joshua James, that already tells you right there, before I even turn on the film, that tells you right there that Callum Peters is of a certain caliber, PYP Boxing says, when will we see Angelo Leo? And shout out to PYP Boxing, my main man, 50 grand out there in San Antonio. He says, when are we going to see Angelo Leo versus Brandon Figueroa? I don't know, man, but I'll tell you that, just being honest, I don't think that's the unification fight that's really in play. I think if Angelo does get a unification fight, the more likely unification fights are going to be Rafael Espinoza and or Bruce Carrington. And I'll tell you guys this, man. I've always told you that, Angelo is one of the realest fighters in boxing, and just be a little more patient. By the end of the year, you might have something good. You might have something really excited, something to be excited about. So just be patient. Be patient. He says, BT's pulling up to South Florida. Nah, I'm not going there for Xander. I mean, I did message the Xander Zayas team about something recently, but I'm not going there to watch Xander. I'm actually going there to take my boy Angelo Leo out on a little press tour. We got some promotional things lined up out there in South Florida, so we're gonna go there, do some media. I got some pretty cool things set up for him, and you guys will be hearing and seeing about those things very soon. That's what we're there for. So, but if I got time to go see Xander, I'll go see Xander. You know, Banger put them pause. Is that Amari Jones? I'm pretty sure that's my main man, Amari Jones. So if that is Omari, not Amari Jones, not the one fighting on Friday, but from the Bay Area, but the one from Orlando. If that is Amari Jones, shout out to Amari Jones, because I'm pretty sure that's his Instagram name, and that looks like him in the profile picture. Good fighter, you know, matchroom boxing fighter. Anyway, next talking point. I want to get into my next talking point while and I'll get your comments, guys, after I just run through this right quickly. So, we got Ryan Garcia, right? You got Ryan Garcia. You got Ryan Garcia, who supposedly is going to fight Conor Benn next. And like I told you guys in the beginning of this live, we were live. The last time we were live, it just so happened to be at the same time Ryan Garcia was on the Jimmy Fallon show. And so you guys are asking about Ryan Garcia and Conor Benn, and I had no clue what you were talking about until after I got the live. And then I went on Instagram, and I seen that, you know, Keith Connolly, the esteemed, very high-profile manager of Conor Benn, he pretty much said, "Look, we don't got no damn fight lined up yet. But if it does get lined up, it'll be a big deal." So look, Ryan Garcia was on the Jimmy Fallon show, you know, and I thought it was a good look for boxing because, you know, boxing, like I said, at best, it's maybe the 8th most popular sport in America. And that's not me disrespecting boxing. I love boxing. It's my favorite sport, but I'm a realist. Like, it's not as popular as the NBA, the NFL, the MLB, the NHL, soccer, college basketball, college football, or the UFC. So it's maybe the 8th and 9th most popular sport in America. It does struggle for eyeballs. And the fact that we got someone like Ryan Garcia on a mainstream show with the WBC belt, I think is a good look for boxing. Now, do I really think that this fight should happen next? No. I think the fight, truth be told, I get why it's happening. It's a big money fight, but it's a cash grab. Like, really and truthfully, it's a cash grab. Conor Benn is not an upper echelon fighter. He's a guy who's had upper echelon level marketing, but he's not an upper echelon level fighter. He never won a Southern Area title, which is the lowest title you can possibly win in British boxing. I've watched him fight veteran fighters, fighters that I know very well, like Pete Dobson and Adrian Granados, and I've seen just things that are clear indications to me that he's not truly on that level. But he talks a lot of trash. He's got some punching power. He's a son of Nigel Benn. So there you go. He's got those things going for him. And so that's why this fight's happening. And, you know, a lot of fighters, they get upset, and they should get upset, because there's a lot of fighters out there that are on the shelves that are not getting opportunities. And you got Conor Benn, who has not fought as a welterweight in like 3 years. Like, he actually has not made the welterweight limit in 3 years, yet he is the #1 WBC contender. And I feel really bad for Suleiman Sissoko, because he's been the mandatory challenger for a long time now. He won an eliminator like early last year. Manny Pacquiao got a fight, got to jump in front of him. Conor Benn is getting the chance to jump in front of him. So, you know, I'm not really excited about this fight. Like if Ryan Garcia fights Conor Benn and he does what I think he's gonna do, which is knock him out in 6 rounds or less, it doesn't really tell me anything about Ryan Garcia and where he's at. And the crazy thing is, like, I give Conor Benn his or Ryan Garcia, I should say, I give Ryan Garcia his due. Ryan Garcia, he finally became a world champion, right? But he became a world champion against, you know, let's be real, like not to put him down. I know, who am I? I'm just a guy with the YouTube channel. I'm not trying to put fighters down, but you got to also be real about a fighter's skill level. Mario Barrios is one of the weaker world champions in boxing. You know, he was a guy that was made to order for Ryan Garcia. Ryan Garcia almost knocked him out in the first round. And like, that fight he won, and it was good, and credit to him for finally becoming a world champion. But it just doesn't really tell us much about where Ryan Garcia's actual skill level is at. And the same thing for Conor Benn. Conor Benn is a guy that is not on that level, and if he knocks him out, that's not going to tell us a whole lot about Ryan Garcia either. The only fights that can really tell us about Ryan Garcia, I would say, is against any of the other champions. So, you got the Rolly fight. Rolly, I was hearing through the grapevine that the rematch was done. Maybe that's still the case because from what Keith Connolly said, this fight's not done. But like, you lost to one of the champions. I feel like he should be trying to run it back at Rolly. They got a lot of history going back to the days when Rolly was sparring at him at Mayweather Gym. You got Devin Haney, who you beat on paper, right? But then it's a no contest, and there's all the stuff that happened after the fight. When people want to that's one of the biggest fights in boxing. So, and you know what's crazy? As much as people will probably shit on Lewis Crocker and say, well, Lewis Crocker, he's not that good, he's okay, right? I would say Lewis Crocker. I would learn more about Ryan Garcia with him fighting Lewis Crocker than I would Conor Benn. Because you with Conor Benn, you know what you're gonna get. You're gonna get a guy that comes forward, that's gonna load up on his shots, that's gonna be explosive. And Ryan Garcia is gonna pick him apart. At least with Lewis Crocker has some craft. He can counterpunch. That's how he beat Patty Donovan. Patty Donovan was the higher upper echelon, a higher skill fighter, but it was Lewis Crocker's patience, his poise, his craft in the pocket, counterpunching. That's what got him over the hump against Patty Donovan. So he's still a legit welterweight. Conor Benn is not, because Conor Benn has not competed at welterweight in a very, very long time. So I'm hoping, my fingers are crossed, the fight doesn't happen and that Ryan Garcia will fight either Rolly Romero and try to avenge his loss, or do the Devin Haney fight in one of the biggest fights in boxing, but right now it's not done. All right, who else we got? Yes. Welcome to True School After Dark. Yeah, shout out to everybody here. Shout out to Omari Jones, who was in the chat earlier. Young upcoming fighter from Matchroom Boxing. Definitely go check him out if you haven't already. So somebody asked me a question about bouts and Xander, and I'm gonna answer. I'm gonna answer it very honestly, very, very honestly. And I'm probably gonna have to say this about 15 more times before they actually fight. But I've decided to make a decision for this fight because I've come on here many times, and big fights come, and you do your breakdowns, you do your predictions, you do these kind of things, and then you get married to your prediction, and it takes away from your enjoyment of the fight. And people don't believe it, but like, I'm a massive fan of Ennis and Xander Zayas. And I actually just want to appreciate this fight because I come on here so much and I cry and I complain about things that are not happening in boxing that I want to see. And something has happened that I do want to see. So for this fight, I've actually decided I'm not making a prediction. I don't want to make a prediction, I like them both. I can see past the victory for both guys. If you guys want a breakdown of strengths and weaknesses, I can give you that. But I will not be making a prediction for this fight. And I haven't done this in a long time. In fact, I don't think I've ever done this ever. But I am refusing to make a prediction for Ennis versus Xander Zayas. I just want to enjoy the fight for what it is. I want to enjoy the moment. I'm going to be in New York City for this fight. God willing, Matchroom Boxing don't get on no funny business, and they just accept me for the fight, and I will be there. But like, this is probably going to be one of, if not possibly, the biggest fight of 2026. I actually just want to enjoy it because how many times in boxing do we actually get two undefeated guys, in their 20s, in a unification fight? You guys tell me, how many? When was the last time in boxing we had two undefeated guys in their 20s in a unification fight? I can't think of a time. Maybe I'm forgetting. Maybe I have short memory, but like, I just want to enjoy the moment. I really just want to enjoy it, and I don't feel like picking Xander or Boots, because if I pick Xander, I gotta hear from Philly. If I pick Boots, I gotta hear from South Florida and Puerto Rico. So I don't want to deal with for this particular fight. I don't want to deal with it. So if you want specific breakdowns on what on each fighter's path to victory, I'll give you that. But I ain't giving you guys no prediction. Shout out to my guy right here, Ishmael Bermudez, with the $5 super chat. I appreciate that, champ. He says, "Do you think Conor Benn and Rolly Romero have similar styles?" I don't. I think Conor Benn is a more like just outright. Yeah, I feel like Conor Benn and Rolly don't have similar styles to me. I think Rolly's more awkward. Rolly has this deceptive boxing ability to him. He's athletic, right? You got to remember what Rolly, like, people talk shit about Rolly. People say that Rolly is dumb and, you know, these kind of things. Yo, and I'm gonna quote Sean Tatel, because we've said this in conversations amongst ourselves, and I agree with him, right? Rolly Romero is one of the most talented fighters in boxing, and I'm gonna explain to you guys why if you don't understand why. Rolly Romero didn't walk into the boxing gym till like his later adolescent years. You understand? Gervonta Davis was like what? He started boxing from a jit, like 5-6 years old. Same thing for Ryan Garcia. Same thing for Shakur. These guys had a whole childhood of experience before Rolly even walked into the gym. And Rolly is such a unique talent that he was actually able to get to this level despite his experience, right? So it says something about, you know, him, you know, from not just his skills. Like, he beat Ryan Garcia. Rolly beat Ryan Garcia, a fighter who was an elite amateur, a fighter who's now went on to become a world champion, a fighter that, you know, started boxing from a kid, right? And he's knocked out Olympians. Like, he fought Anthony Yiggett. Anthony Yiggett was an Olympian. He beat the shit out of him, right? Yeah, so no, I don't think they have similar styles. Rolly's more awkward. Rolly, I think, is also a bit more rugged. Conor Benn, I feel like he tries to be a bit more classy from that mid-range, because you got to also understand the schools of boxing in which both these guys come from. You know, Rolly is Cuban, yes, and he is trained by Ismail Salah, so he's getting a bit more finesse to his game as his career progresses. But, you know, he grew up in the Vegas boxing gyms with a lot less experience than a lot of these guys he has to fight now on the elite level. So the only way that a guy like Rolly would survive in the Vegas gyms, like at places like Johnny Toko's, you know, shout out to Johnny Toko's, one of the great, you know, Vegas gyms. The only way you would survive in a place like Johnny Toko's, where everybody can walk into that gym at any time, you know, you had to be rugged, you had to be tough. So I think he's a bit more tough and rugged inside the pocket. As for Conor Benn, he's coming to you guys live and direct from the UK. And British fighters, they tend to be a bit more by the book, technical, which isn't completely Conor Benn style, but he has remnants of that at times. So no, I think there's differences to me. That's just my opinion, you know. I'm not going to Foster versus Ford. I'll be at the WBC. I'm not going to be at the Bam Rodriguez fight, unfortunately. What the Bam fight is when? The Bam fight is in June something, June 18th. I won't rule it out, but I don't think I'm going to be there. But, you know, it'd be cool to be there because I love Arizona. I love the Mexican girls in Arizona. But I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be in Arizona for that fight. But because the only 3 fights I can tell you guys that I will be at for sure, the 3 fights I'll tell you guys that I'll be at will be Bouts versus Zayas, Mason Cordina, and Andy Dominguez, Anthony Olascuaga. So that's New York City, Cleveland, and the Bay Area in a 3-week stretch. That's where we're gonna go. June 26th, July 4th, July 11th. That's gonna be, you know, what we're on. Yeah, see, Pound understands. He understands, you know, where I'm coming from. Like, I just really want to just enjoy the fight. Like, if there was ever a fight I just want to enjoy, it's this fight. Now he says if Shock beats Ford, and I'm gonna get to these last couple of comments, and then I gotta get back to this Ryan Garcia. But he said if Shock beats Ford, in which I'm favoring him to do so, do you think Shakur will stand on his words and actually fight Foster? Personally, I think Shakur is going to duck Foster. Now, it's very intriguing that you say that because I was in Virginia over the weekend. And Shakur Stevenson was there, but unfortunately, we did not cross paths. And as you guys saw, Pops caused quite a stir in Virginia this week when he spoke to Keyshawn Davis. Now, I had it planned out to where if I would have crossed paths with Shakur that night, my one question was going to be, listen, if Raymond Ford falls short and does not beat O'Shaquie Foster, will you give O'Shaquie Foster the opportunity? Because I have my doubts. You know, Shakur Stevenson's already rated pretty highly. He's a 4-division champion. Foster is a good fight. I think the fight will become a lot bigger if he does beat Ford, but it's still not the biggest fight out there for him. You know, he can still go out and try to fight Devin Haney. There's been rumors of that. You know, he's got options. So I think Shakur will probably take the better options. I don't think he'd fight Foster. I tend to agree with you. I don't think Shakur Stevenson will fight O'Shaquie Foster. And I really want to see that fight. I really want to see Shakur Stevenson fight O'Shaquie Foster for the style matchup, because Shakur Stevenson is arguably the best pure boxer in the sport. But when has he himself ever fought another pure boxer? You know, he's fought a lot of guys like, you know, that come forward, that are front foot dominant, that bring the fight to him. He ain't fought no one with the athleticism, the boxing acumen from the outside like an O'Shaquie Foster. So I would like to see just to see how he deals with that. You know, someone who's rangy, someone who can box from the outside. How does Shakur handle that? You know, I have Foster in that fight. For those people have been asking me, you know, what do I think about that fight? I've got Foster, and you know, Raymond Ford. You know, the last time I picked against Raymond Ford, he had the best performance of his career against Komotov. I was a lot more loud about that one, and Ford was watching my videos, and I was pissing Raymond Ford off. So I kind of feel responsible for Raymond Ford's best performance of his career. So maybe this time Ford can channel the spirit of the Komotov fight. And yes, pound for pound, that is exceptionally correct. Unfortunately, you know, I like chaos. I like, you know, stress. But I like beautiful things, you know. Anyway, getting back to Ryan Garcia, right? He apart from the whole thing about, you know, fighting Conor Benn, I wanted to touch on this a little bit because it's a slow news day in boxing. So I wanted to touch on this because Ryan Garcia, a lot of people hate Ryan Garcia. They like to hate on Ryan Garcia and say that, you know, he's just an Instagram fighter and he's just a social media guy. But and it's funny because I've been telling Angelo Leo for like the last maybe probably 2 training camps that he's had. I was like, hey man, you gotta start talking more. You gotta put yourself out there more. You know, social media is big. You know, it can make or break you getting fights or not getting fights or your purse, right? And he's starting to get it now. So that's why me and him are about to go on this little promotional tour down there in South Florida real soon. But I want to go to screen share and talk about what Ryan Garcia said and kind of just like give my thoughts, right? So Ryan Garcia said the following, and I quote right here in this tweet. He said, "I've been growing my profile in my boxing career since I was 17, and I got people wondering how I have so many opportunities. Everything I've been through and the work I put in both in the ring and out should answer that question. Don't hate, start getting to work." And Ryan Garcia is exceptionally correct. You know, I just mentioned to you guys that boxing is at best the 8th most popular sport in America, right? And that's not completely on the fighters. A lot of that has to do with just the television structure of boxing, right? A lot of the casual fans get frozen out of seeing these guys in front of their face, right? But Ryan Garcia is 1,000% correct. Like, it's so important. It's so important, and you know, just being the head of media solutions for the IBF featherweight champion, you know, just having to put things together. You know, it's very important. And my advice to any and all fighters out there: focus on your training first and foremost. But you know, you gotta be in the public eye. You have to market yourself. You have to be someone that people are constantly seeing and people are constantly thinking about. Because if not, you could be one of the best fighters in the world, but if nobody knows about it, shit, you get frozen out of fights. So, you know, all you fighters out there, get on that marketing. Get on that marketing yourself. Like Ryan Garcia, right? Ryan Garcia just became champion in February, right? But for people that don't know shit about boxing, they thought he was world champion for years just because of the way he's marketing himself. And it's like, it goes back to this story. I'll tell you guys a story that Pete Dobson told me one time. Shout out to Pistol Pete Dobson, you know, friend of the show. It's unfortunate what happened to him over the weekend in Virginia. You know, a lot of people thought he won that fight. I thought he had a great case to win that fight against Kelvin Davis. So shout out to Pete Dobson. But he told me a story one time because, you know, he sparred some of the best fighters in the world. Like, he sparred Ennis, he sparred Terrence Crawford, and he told me a story that one time he had sparred Terrence Crawford like in 2018 or something like that, somewhere around that time. And he said he came back to the Bronx in the hood where he was living, and he said, "Yo, I just sparred one of the best fighters in the world, Terrence Crawford. And people are like, who? Who's that guy? We never heard of him, right? And then, some years go by, and I'm going to say probably 3 or 4 years go by. And he told me one time he was walking the streets one day, and one of his friends on the block, they came up to him and they said, "Yo, Pete, I seen you with the champ on Instagram." And so he was like, he's thinking to himself like Terrence Crawford, Ennis, and then they were like, "Nah, I seen you with the champ on Instagram, Edgar Berlanga," right? So I'm telling you guys this story to let you know that outside of this bubble, a lot of the fighters that the hardcore boxing fans, shit on half the time, like Edgar Berlanga and Ryan Garcia, that market themselves. These are the guys that, the average Joe Blow on the street actually knows, because they're using the tools of social media at their disposal. So I'm all for it with Ryan Garcia. I don't think fighters should compromise themselves, and I don't think fighters should be something that they're not. But I don't think fighters should be mute either. I think it's your responsibility when you're not fighting and you're not in the ring. You got to do as much promotion humanly possible, so that people can care about you, so they can care about your career, because there's a lot of attention, a lot of things vying for people's attention. Why should they care about you? So I'm glad that he said that, because it hit very close to home for me, just because a lot of things that I'm helping put together for Angelo Leo right now. So anyway, let me go back to these comments. Shakur needs to fight another top Black American boxer, but will he? I'd love to see it. I doubt we ever see it, but I'm praying to God that Gervonta Davis come back to boxing. I want to see Gervonta Davis put people in body bags and light it up. And I would love to see Tank versus Shakur still happen. I know Tank said, he's not going to fight him. Shakur's kind of went his own direction. But I would love to see the fight, because I know that it would be a massive event, and I want to cover that fight, and it'll be good for my channel too. But it'd be good for boxing. Those are two guys that together I think could do a lot of good for the sport of boxing. So hopefully he does. Social media is a distraction to box in the gym. It can be, but if you're someone that's dialed into your training, because I've come across there's two types of fighters, and there's no in between. In this day and age, there's no in between. You have either the fighter who's social media like just obsessed and bullshits their training, or you have the guys that are so dialed into the training that they never put any thought into social media. And so I feel like the guys that are really getting it right are doing both, right? And I'm not saying it's all upon the fighter to do the social media. Like, that's why you have people. That's why fighters have teams. Canelo. I'll tell you this. I'll never forget this shit, and it really was an eye opener. In 2021, when I was at the MGM Grand for the Caleb Plant Canelo Alvarez weigh-in, when they fought for Undisputed, I knew a girl who was one of Canelo's photographers. But guess what? Canelo had like 4 photographers, right? He had 4 different photographers that he was paying just to get content for himself, for his fans. And then I noticed the same thing with Inoue. Inoue has a merch store. Inoue has content, right? Inoue has a couple of photographers, right? And so I feel like it is incumbent upon the fighter to put the right pieces in place so that people can get what they need from the fighter. That's just my opinion. Ray is back with his old coach. Yeah, I've seen that. Shout out to Coach Reg. I'm a big fan of Coach Reg. That's what I'm saying. And a big reason why they don't have a lot of visibility pound for pound is because you have two types of fighters in the gym. You have either you have the fighter who's too obsessed with social media that he sucks and he's not good enough to actually win the fights that count to stay relevant long enough. And then you have fighter B, who's so good and so dialed into his training that he puts no focus into social media. So it's only a handful of fighters that are getting it right across the board. And those are the guys that are your stars right now, whether it's Benavidez, whether it's Berlanga, whether it's, Tank, whether it's Inoue. These guys have pieces in place. And, I'm speaking from the standpoint of someone that's one of those people now for a top fighter. Yeah, yeah. He's just a quiet guy. He's a quiet guy, so I get it. BT, are you not going to Foster versus Ford? I will not be there. I want to go, but I'm only one man, and I got some obligations to the IBF featherweight champion. We have some work to do, because a lot of y'all keep saying, like, a lot of y'all been pissing me off, saying that oh well, he's not big enough. I don't know who he is, and he doesn't deserve the fights, and this, that, and the third. He wasn't getting the respect for just being for the work he's displayed in the ring. Two-time two-division champion, knockout of the year, those kind of things, giving y'all great fights. So you know what? I told him, I said, we're gonna put something together for you, and we're gonna go on a little press tour, and we're gonna start getting very vocal about these fights, and we're gonna force these fights. All these fights y'all want to see, we're gonna start doing a whole lot of talking and running down on some of your favorite fighters. So just stay tuned. You'll see. Shit's about to change. Andy Dominguez is locked in. I never seen him like this. Olas Kuwaga better get ready for real. I never see anything like this. I can't even get a Madden game in with him. Yeah, man. I made a video about the fight. I'm probably gonna have to do a second one because I went back and I watched a little film on Olas Kuwaga, and I felt like I need to give Andy Dominguez more of a chance because he's a guy, a lighter guy coming up in weight. But he can box. And Olas Kuwaga has shown he has problems with boxers. And he's a very live dog in that fight. I agree with you, champ. BT, are there any goals that you're trying to accomplish this year? Yeah, quite a few, man. I'm trying to get to 100,000 subscribers, but if I can't get to 100,000 subscribers, then I want to get as close as possible. I'm trying to help the champ. I'm trying to help the champ win another world title by the end of this year. So whether it's the WBC title or the WBO title, one of those. I'm trying to really make some strides in the boxing e-commerce game. So during training camp, I taught myself in less than 80 days, I taught myself Shopify. I built Angelo a Shopify store. And y'all can go check it out. AngeloLeoApparel.com. Every shirt on there, every product on there was designed by yours truly. I'm trying to get some of my friends in the fight game some fights so that they can move their careers along. I'm trying to go to Japan again. I have a lot of goals. I have a whole lot of goals inside and outside of boxing, but those are a couple that I'll share. Apple doesn't dive into boxing, do they? I would imagine. Not yet. They should. It'd be cool if they did. It's a possibility. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. We'll see what options present themselves. When was Berlanga a champion? He's never been a champion. But my point is that even though he's not a champion, he's on Instagram promoting himself as such. So people who don't know shit, they think he's a champion. And it was the same thing on Ryan Garcia. Now, my man right here asked, what's my prediction for Ryo versus De Los Santos? This time around, I got Ryo. I think Ryo gets it done. I think he's a different fighter. I think he gets it done in the rematch. But anyway, going to my next talking point, because I got 3 more. Make sure you guys go ahead and you smash that like button. Definitely go ahead and take the time to subscribe. We're closing in on that 91,000, which means we're closing in on that 100,000 slowly but surely. So definitely, support the channel. We're definitely growing, and I'm very grateful for all the steady growth and support over the years and all the kind words that y'all give to me and my dad. And it's just dream come true. I'm really living a dream come true every time I come here. So thank you guys. But next talking point, because I put out a tweet earlier today, and then I'll read it to you guys verbatim. It was about Keith Connolly. But here's what he said. Here's what I said. I said the following, and I quote: "For those keeping score at home, Keith Connolly is funneling damn near all his fighters to Zuffa Boxing. Edgar Berlanga, Conor Benn, Richard Hitchens, Sergey Derevyanchenko, Abel Gonzalez are all now signed to Zuffa Boxing. Don't be surprised if at some point Teofimo Lopez does the same." So we're talking about, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4. He's got 5 fighters signed to Zuffa Boxing, and I've talked to a couple of people in the boxing world, and they've already told me that the Teofimo Lopez Zuffa boxing deal is already done. It's been done for a little bit of time now. It just hasn't been announced to the public. So we should be getting an announcement on that here sooner rather than later, from what I've been told. But you never really know until you see it. But that's what I've been told. So you're talking about what? 1, 2, 3, 4. We're talking about six Keith Connolly fighters have been funneled over to Zuffa boxing, and the only Keith Connolly fighter that I can think of that's not an outright Zuffa boxing fighter is Filip Hrgovic, and he's not going to be a Zuffa boxing fighter more than likely because he's a heavyweight. He's a highly ranked heavyweight. He's in prime position to fight in big fights against guys like Daniel Dubois, Moses Itama, and a whole host of other guys. So he's getting paid so much money, and I know Hrgovic gets paid. Like Keith Connolly looks after Filip Hrgovic because I know Hrgovic. I've talked to Hrgovic about things that are not on the internet, and I know Filip Hrgovic gets taken care of pretty good. So it's really intriguing. And Keith Connolly, he ain't the only guy. He's not the only guy that is funneling all his guys to Zuffa boxing. We've seen a lot of the lower level Robert Garcia fighters go to Zuffa boxing, and we know that Bam Rodriguez, there was a strong interest and a strong push from the fine folks at Zuffa boxing for Bam Rodriguez. For them to sign Bam Rodriguez. They forced Matchroom Boxing to match their offer. So listen, I feel like Zuffa, what they're doing is they're building from the bottom up. So every fighter they can get, they're starting off with the guys on the shelves, the guys that have been forgotten about, the guys that don't have a career to speak of. Then they're working their way up to the fringe contenders, the European high risk, low reward guys nobody wants to fight. They got a couple champions now, a couple names. Conor Benn, Berlanga, Hitchens. These are guys with like some sort of commercial value, and they got those guys. So and these guys are all friends with fighters that are actually top upper echelon fighters, and now we've been beginning to hear rumblings of Shakur Stevenson going to Zuffa, Devin Haney going to Zuffa. So I'm really intrigued. To me, even though I have my I'm very skeptical of Zuffa boxing and what the long-term play is going to be. I'm very intrigued to see, like, can they land the upper echelon guys, and if they can get a Shakur Stevenson, if they can get a guy like Devin Haney, what does that do for boxing long term? So just wanted to highlight that, guys. Keith Connolly is funneling all his guys into Zuffa boxing, and from what I've been told, from not just one person, but I'm talking about two people, the Teofimo Lopez deal is pretty much done. And we'll see when and if it gets announced. And I still don't trust it. I still don't trust what I was told completely, because really and truthfully, Teofimo Lopez does have a strong relationship with the guys at Top Rank, and I do think Top Rank would strongly consider doing Brian Norman Jr. versus Teofimo Lopez for the vacant WBO title in the future, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. My man Jazz says, "Yo, BT, you need to drop some Angel Leo hats. We got hats. You know what? We're talking about it. So hold on. You guys got me talking about my goals and how I'm getting into the boxing e-commerce game, because I'm not. People have always looked at me as just a YouTube guy, and I've always told people that know me personally, I'm not just a YouTube guy. I am a true visionary when it comes to just boxing. I'm a creative person too, so I am not just a YouTuber. I am the Kanye West of everything outside the boxing ring. We're talking about content. We're talking about interviews. We're talking about e-commerce. We're talking about game planning at the highest level. We're talking about all kinds of stuff. But you know what? Since y'all gonna be talking about it, and you're saying that we got to drop hats, all right? Hold on. I'll show you guys what I put together, right? So this is the actual store. I actually built this store from scratch. I taught myself and learned Shopify in 80 days or less while I was in camp, when I had downtime and we weren't in the gym. I built this store. So this is angelleoapparel.com. Y'all can go ahead, and if y'all want to support the champ, y'all can go there. It's drop shipping. So if you purchase something, it's going to get delivered right to your house. You go here, right? You go here. We got all kinds of shirts, and I designed every product on here. We got like this Venata Lopez shirt right here of Angelo standing with Venata Lopez. You see it. It's where's Where is it? Yeah, got Angelo right there standing over Bernardo Lopez. Got the date there. Albuquerque, New Mexico, Tinley Coliseum. You got that. Well, what else we got? What else we got on AngeloLeoApparel.com? You got the Stephen Fulton shirt that I made, which I think is pretty cool. I designed this shirt myself right here. Right here. Look, Stephen Fulton, Angelo Leo, Mohegan Sun Casino, WBO Championship of the World. So yeah, we got all kinds of stuff going on. And yeah, we do got hats. Since my man brought up hats, where the hats at? Hold on. Gotta make some more hats. I gotta add some products to the store and add some designs I have. But yeah, we got hats. If y'all want hats, we got hats, we got shirts. We'll have hoodies coming soon. So if y'all want to support the champ, we got the Street Fighter Angelo Leo hat if you want one. So yeah, go support. Go support, that's what it is. But and I'll even drop the link if you want to go check it out for yourself, But anyway, back to the oh snap. I didn't even have it on screen share. Hold on. I didn't even have the shit on screen share. Hold on. Now I gotta show you guys again. Hold on. I gotta show you again. So the link is there. Hold on. The link is there. I gotta go to screen share because I didn't even have the damn screen share on. So hold on. Let me go back to the website because. So yeah, look. What I was saying is hold on. Take this bullshit off. What I was saying is during camp when your boy BT was bored, I had nothing to do. In like 70 days, 80 days or less, I taught myself the skill of Shopify. All right. Built the store from scratch, designed the store from scratch. Right. So you go here. This is live. You all can go here right now. This is AngeloLeoApparel.com. Look, and I designed all the shirts, good material shirts. We got this shirt right here. We got my man Angelo standing right over Bernardo Lopez. Got the, one of my favorite pictures in boxing history. Then you got like the date, venue, place that the venue, the place that the city it took place in. Got that shirt. You got the shirt right here. You got what Angelo Leo throwing a body shot on Bernardo right here. That's a pretty cool shirt. I got one of those at the crib right here. What else you got? The other day I made a shirt too. I got right here. I got the Stephen Fulton Angelo shirt that I made myself. Pretty nice shirt. So, cool. I want to really get good at the e-commerce stuff. I've always been interested in e-commerce and Shopify and things like that, so, yeah, that's like my next little project I'm getting into. But, yeah, shout out to everybody out here. He says, I'm not saying you're bad, but do you ever try to improve your camera work, like cinematography with like classes or anything like that? Are you interested in improving that way? To be honest, not really. Not really. Like, I do need to. I bought some mics recently, so I'm gonna upgrade my audio. But like, I'm not a videographer. If I wanted to do that, I would just hire a videographer. So maybe that's the next step. Maybe I'll get a videographer soon. But that's not really like my thing. He said, "Damn, this is yeah." That's what I'm saying, man. Your boy BT. Like, I'm telling you guys, like. Shit's about to change in this featherweight division on all standpoints, from getting these big fights to winning these big fights to the commercially to everything, man. So you're gonna see, man. You're gonna see what it's like to have what the value of True School on your team, what it can bring you, So anyway, he says, with all due respect, I like the merch, but those prices are a little steep. I hear you, champ. Nothing's final. Nothing's final. But if it's there, if you want to buy something, you buy something. It's not like it's live, but I'm still learning things about e-commerce. So we might lower the prices soon, but we'll see. We'll see. We've gotten a couple of sales, and I haven't even really pushed it like that. Can you get in trouble for using Bernardo on the shirts? No, we're good. We should be good with that. But we might get in trouble for the Stephen Fulton ones though. So I might have to take some of those down soon. But so far so good. Anyway, guys, 2 more talking points, and then I'll just freestyle the rest of the live. So I want to talk briefly about some of the fights in Egypt. Shout out to everybody here. Make sure you smash the like button. I wanted to touch briefly on Shakur Stevenson because he is fighting Jack Catterall this weekend. Even though he's not a big name, even though I don't think he's this like great fighter, he's been the WBA mandatory for a long time, and he's been he's been WBA mandatory for a long time. He's an Olympian. He's been signed to match box for a while, and I remember like back in December, I had a chance to interview Rolly Romero at the WBA convention, and when I interviewed Rolly Romero at the WBA convention, I asked him about Shakur Giyashov, and he got very upset about it. You know, he didn't want to talk about boxing, you know, and it was probably one of the most awkward interviews I've ever done. So I want to touch on that because I feel like Giyashov's at a crossroads, whether he loses or he wins, because if he loses, he's not getting a shot at Rolly. But even if he wins, he probably still won't get a shot at Rolly because the WBA and Rolly are like this. And if that does happen, you might get Shakur Giyashov in a situation where he might go to Zuffa boxing because Shakur Giyashov, he fits the description of what Zuffa boxing is. So anyway, let me go to screen share, right? Because he did an interview on Ring Magazine, and he said, "Look," and I quote, "I think he being Rolly, I think he's scared of me, right? I think he's scared of me." And he pretty much accused Rolly of ducking him, which, look, man, I don't care if you think Rolly would win. I don't care if you think Shakur Giyashov is mid. Rolly ain't running to him. And I've been in this man's presence. I've asked Rolly about Shakur Giyashov. And I'm not gonna say he's scared of him, but he ain't exactly rushing to the smoke, you know. He doesn't even, and to be honest with you, Rolly doesn't even really know who Shakur Giyashov is, if I'm being honest. But still, it's to a point now where like Giyashov, if he does beat Jack Catterall is a legitimate fighter. If you beat Jack Catterall, the WBA needs to get out their bullshit and actually let Giyashov get his shot, because Giyashov is the mandatory. He's been the mandatory for a while. Giyashov's daughter passed away not that long ago, and I'm sure he's very determined to honor his daughter's legacy and become world champion. So if he's gone through the proper protocols, becoming the mandatory, winning the eliminators, things like that, he should be afforded the opportunity to fight Rolando Rolly Romero. And my thing is, if Rolando Rolly Romero doesn't want to fight Shakur Giyashov, then the WBA has to actually do right by their own rules and strip him, you know? And I'm not no big time Giyashov fan. I've seen Giyashov fight live. I can't remember who he fought, but they did a card the day before Crawford Madrimov. They did a show in Santa Monica on the pier, and he fought someone, and I was there. He was mid. Like Shakur Giyashov, in my opinion, is mid. He's a good, solid professional fighter. He's an Olympian, got a lot of amateur experience, but I've never been wowed by him. I've never been overwhelmed by his skill set or anything like that. So I don't like it. I don't like the WBA playing these games, because I hate it. Like, nothing in boxing will piss me off more than when the mandatory gets jerked around. I hate it. You know, I hate it. And I hate it for every fighter. I hate it for any and all fighters, even fighters that I don't think much of, like Michael Eifert, for example. Right? Michael Eifert is just now getting his mandatory shot against Bivol. Michael Eifert literally became the mandatory in in January of 2023, because I remember that year I interviewed John Pascal. I went down to South Beach Boxing because I was still living in South Florida at the time. I went down to South Beach Boxing. I interviewed John Pascal heading into that fight. I was asking John Pascal about fighting Artur Beterbiev, big Canadian super fight, those kind of things. And he wound up losing to Michael Eifert. That was early 2023. So we're talking about over 3 years ago. He's just now getting his shot at the title. And see, even though Michael Eifert ain't no great fighter, he's just a basic, upright European German fighter. He should still get his shot, And I hate boxing sometimes. That's why when a fighter actually fights the mandatory, you gotta go ahead and you gotta respect it. Ismail Bermuda says, BT, I just read on Boxing Speed Science that Rolly Romero is retiring. Yeah. If he's retiring, then he's retiring. I don't think he's retiring. I think he's still gonna get a big fight. I think whether it's Devin, whether it's Ryan, he's going to get a big fight, but he has this headache. The headache comes in the form of Shakur Giyashov. who's been mandatory for a long time. And Rolly has to stay busy, like PYB Boxing said. He has to stay busy. He can't just sit there and twiddle his thumbs and wait for the big fight, you know. And the WBA can't just sit there and twiddle their thumbs and do all these favors for Rolly Romero. They got to be at some point somewhat of a proper sanctioning body, which, you know, I got love for some of those guys that work for the WBA. I've been to 2 of their conventions, but I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Like, they got like 6 gajillion regional titles, you know, and they do play favorites more than most sanctioning bodies. So hopefully they can enforce the shot at some point, because Giashov deserves his shot. And if Giashov, if for some reason, if Giashov loses, if Giashov doesn't get the job done against Jack Catterall, then guess what? Rolly got to go see Jack Catterall, right? So I'm keeping that same energy for either guy. Shout out to Henry Boy. He says Giashov would have a better chance to win if he had a good jab. I agree with that. I mean, I don't think he has a bad jab. I just think from what I've watched, he just moves around a lot, and he's a fighter that I think he relies a bit too much on his athleticism, you know? That's what I think from what I've seen. But again, like I've said for many fighters, you know, sometimes, you know, Giashov hasn't really fought anybody too great thus far in his career. And a lot of times for a fighter to get the best out of themselves, they need a certain level of danger or a certain name. And I feel like for Giashov, maybe really could be that name. Pedro Cabrales says, blazing one up while I'm watching the homie BT. That's right. Shout out to you, champ, and appreciate you for all the support. Enjoy your joint, and glad you're here on True School Sports, on True School After Dark, you know. Why would Rolly retire right now? If Rolly retire right now, the main reason why he's going to retire is probably just to get out of fighting his mandatory. The same reason a lot of guys retire. You know, a lot of times we've seen it in the past. Certain fighters will retire because there's certain fights that people want them to take, and then they give it a year or so, and the coast clears, and then they come back, you know. But one thing I could also tell you about Rolly, because me and Rolly have like 3 or 4 very close mutual friends. You know, me and Rolly aren't friends. Like, me and Rolly are not on a first name basis. We're not friends, but a lot of my very close personal friends are very close to are very close personal friends of his as well. And one thing I can tell you about Rolly is that, you know, I know he does a Bible study with certain fighters every Sunday, and it's called Bible Bros. And I know Rolly's been getting very close to God. And I'll tell you this, you know, I interviewed Rolly a lot when, you know, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2020. I mean, Rolly's a much different guy now. He really is a changed man. He ain't the same guy he used to be. You know, God has really changed that man's life. So if he does retire, part of it could be this WBA mandatory, but it also really could, I feel it could be it could be because he actually found his other callings in life that are beyond boxing. And those things happen when, you know, you give your life to the Lord and you find Jesus. You know, look at Manny Pacquiao. Yeah, he still fought, but he wasn't the same guy. He wasn't Sinner Pacquiao, as people like to say. Joel, and shout out Joel, he says, BT, you got to use the he's very Zuffa hashtag phrase with Shakram Giashov. He is very Zuffa. He's very Zuffa, very Dana White, you know, very Nick Khan, very he's very Zuffa boxing. I agree. And you know what? On Twitter, Joel, do me a favor. Tweet me on Twitter and remind me to make a list of all the guys in boxing that are very Zuffa. And then I want people to chime in with the hashtag he's very Zuffa, because there's a lot of guys that I feel don't have a career that are very Zuffa, and he's one of them. Giashov is one of them. Dude's been mandatory for God knows how long. Hennis Revolt says that Giashov's style is perfect for Jack Catterall. The problem will be Catterall counterpunching, but if Giashov can get on the inside, it's going to be a bad night for Jack. And yeah, and the intriguing thing is that both these guys are I would classify both these guys as pretty good movers, athletic guys, above average athletic guys. So the advantages that Giashov normally would enjoy in the footwork and or athleticism department, I don't think he's going to enjoy those advantages in this fight as much. So it's going to force Giashov to dig into that Uzbek amateur Olympian pedigree a little bit and get in the right position to hit Catterall, because Catterall is very crafty in there. But what I can say though, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure Catterall isn't with Bozy Ennis anymore. And if that's the case, I don't like that, because I feel like Bozy Ennis was really getting a good tune out of Jack Catterall. So I feel like him without Bozy, he becomes more beatable. It's good to make a lie, but who gives a fuck about Rolly? These dudes never fight, and not nothing special. Boxing is glorified WWE. We talk more about fighters and not actual fights. I agree. I try to talk about fights as much as I can, but to be honest with you, champ, there's not really a ton of great fights on this week. I mean, Amari Jones is headlining in the Bay Area against one of the weakest champions boxing's produced in the last 20 years in Vincenzo Gutierrez. He's gonna beat the shit out of him. That's just a fight against a guy who was a former world champion. That's designed to make him look good in a historically terrible middleweight division, right? So I don't, I watched the fight. It's cool. Shout out to the Bay Area, but like that's whatever. And the undercard's not that great either. And then you got what's the other fight? What's the other fight this weekend? I'm blanking out. Guys, remind me. What's the other fight this Saturday? Usyk, the Usyk card. Usyk's fighting a kickboxer. You got Richard Torres versus Frank Sanchez. You got a couple of good little fights on the undercard, but like that's not really a crazy card either. So really, May 30th is all that matters really at this point in boxing. Shock Foster versus Ford. I think we're all kind of sitting around waiting for that fight. He says, I got a question, genuine question. Why, in your opinion, is Tank the face of boxing the way he is? Even when he is gone for years, he's the main attraction. Well, I don't like getting into the whole face of boxing. I don't like getting into the whole face of boxing talk, because boxing, I look at things from like, I'm in the States, so boxing in the States is like the 8th most popular sport. So to me, it's a pointless argument. But to answer your question, the reason why he's transcended the hardcore boxing community and he's looked at like that is because early in his career, he was the guy that was anointed as the next face of boxing by Floyd Mayweather himself. He got the Mayweather cosign, and he got the Mayweather cosign around the time when Mayweather's name was still buzzing. He was still fighting. He was doing the fights of Conor McGregor. He fought on the Conor McGregor Floyd undercard. So he really benefited from the hype of Floyd Mayweather. And I think that's carrying him through all these years. And then to make matters better, Mayweather Promotions, they put like very specific opposition in front of him to make him look like a knockout artist. And he did his job. He gave big time knockouts. I was actually at the Tank Davis, Leo Santa Cruz fight. I was there. And, that fight really put him over in the pandemic as well. So I would just say it's a combination of his knockouts, those viral moments, and then the Floyd Mayweather, co-sign. Did you watch a guy called Henry Japanese boxing? No, I don't. I have no clue what you're talking about. So put me on game, champ. I have no clue what you're talking about. Yeah, they got the El Paso card coming up. They got the whole Stephanie Hahn. Shout out to the lovely Stephanie Hahn. I got a lot of love for Stephanie Hahn. But I'm not gonna. I don't lie to you guys. I don't cap. I don't really like pay attention, nor do I really like. Yeah, I don't really pay attention to the women's boxing as much, and I don't really care for it the way I used to, just because of the fact that like three years ago, I've always covered Japanese boxing, but 3 years ago, I really upped the Japanese boxing coverage. So something had to get sacrificed, and that was what got sacrificed was with the women's boxing. And really and truthfully, like women's boxing is in a good place now. They get paid a lot of money. Girls can duck fights now. Now women's boxing is at a stage now where you got women marinating fights. Like Alicia Bumgarner don't want to fight Caroline Dubois. She's trying to marinate fights. So I guess women's boxing has made it. Girls can duck fights now. Women's boxing, 10 years ago, because 10 years ago I was here on YouTube and I was covering, back in the day, Sinisa Estrada, Clarissa Shields back then. And women's boxing was not what it is now. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you guys straight like that. BT, another fight I would like to see is Loma versus. Yeah, that's a good fight. Loma, Roach will fight those guys. Roach will definitely fight Lomachenko. Zepeda versus Lomachenko will be crazy because Zepeda is a Kung Fu Mexican fighter. We know that Lomachenko lost early in his career to a Kung Fu Mexican fighter, so that's a hell of a matchup. Shout out to my guy Timu Al Heyman with the $2 super chat. I appreciate your contributions, champ. Thank you so much. He says, BT, do you think Vaquero Navarrete beats Lomachenko at 130 pounds? Man, that's a hell of a fight. I would say, yeah, I do. I do. I do think he at 130 he could. Now at 35 he wouldn't. I don't think he would because his punching power wouldn't carry up. We've seen that with Dennis Baranchik. But if they fight at 30, and what if he has the same training camp he had for Sugar Nunez, because Vaquero he missed weight early in his career a couple of times. He's a big guy. He was sucking down to 130 pounds. He was having a hard time, or a really true hard time. But he went before the Nunez fight because that was a true legacy fight. Two Mexican warriors, unification fight. He had to make sure he dotted his T's and crossed his I's for that fight. I don't know who his nutritionist was, but he made weight. He was strong, and it showed in the fight. So whatever he did that camp, repeat it for the Lomachenko fight. And I think Lomachenko will have some problems being 30. You 38 years old, and you're going to step in there with Vaquero Navarrete? Nah, you don't want no smoke with him. I'm sorry. That guy's a problem. That guy, like, he could beat a lot of guys. I feel like Vaquero from 130 to 126, that's arguably, in my opinion. In fact, fuck it. From 130 to 122, that might be the hardest fight in boxing for anybody. And that might be an unpopular opinion, because I know everybody will say, like, oh, well, BT, what about Inoue? What about your boy Angelo Leo? I'm not biased. I'm not as biased as you guys think. I feel like that is the hardest challenge to tackle from 122 to 130 because of the range, because of the heavy hands, because of the body punching. And then on top of that, everybody thinks that Vaquero is they think that he's like this easy guy to hit. And sure, he's not Pernell Whitaker, he's not Shakur Stevenson. You're not going to see him bob and weave shots in the traditional sense, but he's a very hard guy to hit with flush shots on a consistent basis. And so when you factor those things in, when you factor in at 130 pounds, his punching power, his range, his awkward ways, his volume, his activity, his stamina, he's a very, very hard guy to defeat. And I've made no secrets about it. You guys have asked me many times, BT, what do you think about Angelo versus Inoue, Espinoza, Shushu, all those guys? I tell you guys, I love our chances against all those guys. I even go as far as to tell you guys that while I have respect for those guys, I'm not really worried about those guys. I think we're going to beat them. The only guy in all of boxing where I would be like, damn, this is going to be a really hard camp, this is going to be a really hard assignment, is Vaquero. That's really how I feel. That's how I feel. And so you guys know, coming from me, that's the ultimate respect I can give any fighter. He did. No, he did. He did. He came here on the live, and he was telling me, BT, Sugar Nunez ain't gonna do it. You tripping, champ. And him and Miguel was right about that. So he knew what he was talking about on that occasion. I did not. But yeah, he's made it very clear that that's a fight that could be that at some point. And I'd love the challenge. I would love the challenge to go to training camp and game plan to beat one of the hardest guys to game plan for in the sport of boxing. Do you think that Leo and by the way, shout out to everybody here at your boy BT, the Untouchable True School Sports Empire, which it's 2 in the morning, 2:11 a.m. in the morning. Was what 11 make a wish, 11 p.m. on the West Coast. Shout out to you guys, and I believe it's like 1:11 p.m. in Central Time. So shout out to everybody wherever you're at in the world joining. Let me know where you guys are watching from, what city, what state, what continent, what country. If you're in the whole different country, put that in the comments down below as well. We got like 30 minutes left, and I'm gonna go ahead and get up on out of here. But who knows, man? If this chat continues if it gets more lit, I might give y'all 20, 30 extra minutes. We don't know, but we'll fill it out. He says, do you think Leo will be able to make fights quicker at 130 than at 126, or would it be the same? Good question. What, at 30, you got what? You got Foster, you got Kakachi, you got Vaquero, 2 belts. Those are your 3 champions. Well, Vaquero is the same Mexican promoter that Espinoza has. Vaquero has. And, you know, I'm not going to say that he ducked Angelo Leo, because I actually don't believe that. But I will make a note. Stephen Fulton and Angelo Leo fought for Vaquero's vacant WBO title. So, you know, he probably could have stayed at 22 a little longer, maybe. And that could have been a fight in the past, but who knows? But if Espinoza is with Zanfer and Vaquero's with Zanfer, I think it'll be an uphill battle to get that fight. Just being honest, you know. Angelo's profile isn't where it needs to be yet. It's going to be there soon, though, so don't worry about that. So I don't see that being a fight that would easily get made, unless, of course, Angelo wins a big fight against, let's say, Espinoza or Bruce Carrington, and then, you know, he becomes a bigger star in the sport. Then it's more makeable. Him versus Kakachi. Kakachi's a Frank Warren fighter. I'm telling y'all right now, Frank Warren ain't putting no damn Angelo Leo in it with Kakachi. We'll beat the dog shit out of Kakachi. Kakachi didn't even want to fight, or they didn't even want to put Nick Ball in there with Angelo, because I talked to guys at Queensberry, and, you know, so if he was going to get a fight, I think the easiest fight to make would be O'Shaquie Foster, and that'd be a hard fight too. He's a damn good fighter, very good fighter, you know, so who knows? But I think right now, you know, featherweight, but who knows? Things change quickly. PYP Boxing says Rene Calixto versus Ubaldo Garcia, Luis Neri, good luck in Japan if you make. Yeah. I heard the show almost got canceled. I'm just glad that it's still on. I'm glad it's still on. And then, okay, two comments, guys, and I'm gonna go into my last talking point because I got a bit off track. Leo versus O'Shaquie Foster would be great. I would love that fight. I think O'Shaquie Foster is one of the best pure boxers out there. He's the truth, and, you know, I am picking him against Raymond Ford, so we'll see if Ford can do it again against me and prove me wrong again. But he's really good at keeping things long on the outside. You know, if it ever gets to a point where you can't get the unification fights and Inoue doesn't want to come up and they want to stagnate his career, you know, 130 might be the move in the future. We don't know, but we'll see. Hayato versus another great fighter, another awesome fighter, another guy that probably should be world champion right now, but, you know, somebody asked me in the chat what happened to Hayato Tsutsumi. Hayato Tsutsumi was supposed to fight Jazza Dickens but got injured, so that's why it didn't happen. But that's another crazy fight, you know, that I haven't really put much thought into. Shout out to my man PYP Boxing out there in San Antonio, or not San Antonio. He's more like West Texas. But shout out to him, man. Good to see you in the chat, man. Hope all is well. I'm looking forward to that Whataburger whenever I go to Texas again, which I'm not even sure when that's going to be because there's no fights in Texas right now. But I do want to go to Texas. I am very eager to go to Texas at some point. Maybe if Brandon Figueroa has a voluntary defense, because when I interviewed Brandon Figueroa, he was talking about doing a voluntary defense in I think he's from like Velasco or somewhere by where you're from. So if that's the case, he's going to do that, and the schedule permits. I would love to go to Texas for that because they got some another thing too. They got some beautiful women in that part of Texas, that whole South Padre Island, West Texas or South Texas. I don't know if it's South Texas or West Texas, but down there where you're at, you know. Thank you for the super chat. I thought Ubaldo Garcia was fighting Bam Rodriguez. Ubaldo has not got nothing on the schedule. Ubaldo, listen, man, I don't like disrespecting fighters, but it pissed me off how the whole Kenshiro thing played out because I really wanted to see Kenshiro Taraji fight Bam Rodriguez. That was the fight for me. I'm a big Kenshiro Taraji, one of my favorite fighters in boxing. Kenshiro has been calling for the Bam fight on this channel for 3 years. Like literally since, look, I'll show you guys something. Look. That little yellow banner right there, that Kenshiro banner, that's from his first world title. And there's only like 2 or 3 of those in the world. And he gave it to me when I went to Japan, when I went to his gym in Kyoto, right? So I love this banner. It's one of my most prized possessions, and I really cherish it. But I remember the day that I got this banner was the first day he called out Bam on this channel. And so I've been wanting to see that fight. It looked like for a little bit of time there that, you know, if he would have beat Ubaldo, that would have been the natural progression. But then Ubaldo pulled out, and then Ubaldo was seen at the team hotel the next day, eating snacks, having a good time, mucking it up with everybody. So that pissed me off a lot. And I'm still pissed off too about the Ricardo Sandoval fight, because I don't think Ricardo Sandoval actually beat Kenshiro. I thought Kenshiro did enough to win, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, right now nothing for Ubaldo. Shout out to my main man, 50 grand, Cassius Keita in the building. He said salute to BT and salute to you, champ. Hope all is well. One of the movers and the shakers behind the scenes of this glorious and sometimes not so glorious fight game that we all love. Hope all is well. Joel says he wants to see Brandon Figueroa versus John Paul Rivera. Let's see Mexico versus Puerto Rico. And that'd be a good fight. John Paul Rivera is a big, strong kid. He knocked out one of my friends. I was pretty mad about that. He beat the brakes off my boy Daniel Bailey, which I didn't like. But John Paul Rivera is a good fighter. I believe he might have been an Olympian, but don't quote me on that. But good fighter. Good power jab. That'd be an explosive fight. But last talking point, guys. Last talking point, and then from there on out, we're just gonna freestyle the rest of the live, because I'd be remiss, and I would be dishonest if I didn't at least say this one time during this fight week, because really and truthfully, guys, I've been covering Alexander Usyk on this channel since about 2017. I've been covering Usyk on this channel since he fought Michael Hunter. Way back when at cruiserweight. I'm talking the early days of cruiserweight. And let's call a spade, man. Like, Alexander Usyk, great fighter, Hall of Famer, arguably the best fighter in the world, 2-time undisputed champion, gold medalist. Like, we could say so many great things about Usyk, but he's getting such a pass. It's ridiculous. He's getting a pass. And he's getting a pass that Naoya Inoue definitely does not get. I go off of Inoue all the time for dragging his feet coming out the featherweight. And not even just Inoue, like Jaron Ennis couldn't get this pass. Terrence Crawford wouldn't get this pass if he was still fighting. No other fighter would get this pass. And I feel like he's not getting enough flack. He's not getting enough criticism for fighting Rico Verhoeven, because really and truthfully, unless you watch kickboxing, like, who the fuck is Rico Verhoeven? Like, who is this guy? Right? And so fight week just seems very anticlimactic, and Turkey's doing all this weird shit with him going to taking the fight to the pyramids of Egypt, like, because when you got a fight that's not really worth its weight in its on its own, you got to do all this weird shit around the fight. You got to put it in the pyramids with camels and all this other stuff. So I just feel like he's not getting the criticism that he should be getting. Yes, he's great. Yes, he's a Hall of Famer. Yes, all that stuff, but there's legitimately, like, right now in the heavyweight division, there's 3 fighters that he could be fighting right now. And my memory is not my memory is not short, guys. It's very long. Before Joseph Parker lost to Fabio Wardley, Joseph Parker was one of the guys that had the biggest case to fight Usyk, and Usyk wasn't really trying to fight him either, right? He's probably one of the only guys from this era of heavyweights, along with Deontay Wilder, that was champion that he never fought, right? And he wasn't trying to fight him. And now, obviously, he lost, so the fight doesn't make sense like it used to. But, right now you got Ajit Kabayel, who is the WBC interim champion, right? Basically, it's mandatory. That's a fight a lot of people want to see. And Ajit Kabayel, if they wanted to do it in Europe and Germany, he's a ticket seller, right? He's proven himself. He stopped couple name guys in the division, been looking sensational in his performances. That's one guy. Then you got Moses Itauma, a guy that people look at as a phenom. Cassius is in the chat. Cassius Keita, who has a direct line to a lot of these fighters. He said it many times, like, yo, Moses Itauma is the best heavyweight in the world, right? And a lot of people in the boxing industry feel that way about Moses. A lot of people think Moses is so good that he could fight Usyk right now and maybe even beat him, right? And then, this one's a fight that he won't really get any pressure to fight, but this is a guy that would deserve to fight him. Filip Hrgović, one of the top contenders out there, a guy, probably one of the only guys in the division who's in position to fight him, that has just as much experience as him from an amateur standpoint and a professional standpoint. So there's options for Usyk, but we're not getting that. We're getting served we're getting served chicken shit and being told it's a chicken souffle, salad. So I'm just saying, if Inoue were to fight some featherweight kickboxer, oh my God, we would never hear the end of it. And the same thing would be for other fighters in boxing. So I'll leave it at that. I just wanted to go ahead and say that. Bud Crawford never got a pass. You don't think he got a pass? I felt like he got a pass. You see, did Bud Crawford? He didn't get a pass, but his career is a bit different because he wasn't getting a lot of the fights early in his career. So maybe I should have not mentioned him, but like a lot of fighters wouldn't get the kind of pass Usyk is getting, and there's fighters out there that have the same credentials as him, if not even greater, that have fought in his era, like Inoue, like Crawford, and they couldn't do no shit like this. No way. Tyson Fury, and Anthony Joshua fought Francis Ngannou, and they didn't get no pass, and they both lost to Usyk. So what does that tell you? Moses, and here you go. Here's Cassius. He says Moses would stop Usyk at this stage of Usyk's career, and it will not be competitive after one. Damn, God, really? Like, man, you've been talking crazy to him, Cassius. Like, Filip Hrgović is gonna get plastered. Usyk's gonna get plastered. Who can beat Moses then? Jesus, that's what I'm saying. Like, people were shitting on. I remember because I lived through the era. I remember, Klitschko, the heavyweight division was very weak. So you'd have guys like, Calvin Brock and, Lamont Brewster and these kind of guys that, Klitschko had to fight. Kubrat Pulev when he was like younger. Bryant Jennings. Yeah, sure. These guys weren't like, great fighters, but they were top contenders. He fought them. He would honor his mandatories. These kind of things, and he would get, man, people pretty much said the heavyweight boxing was just in the shitter when his whole heavyweight title reign, right? He didn't get no respect by a lot of American media, and he was fighting the best legitimate competent professionals he could find. But now Usyk gets the biggest pass in the world, which I don't understand. Yeah, Mizuki Hiruta. Yeah, Mizuki Hiruta. She's in the card. She's fighting that little cute Somalian girl or Egyptian girl. I forgot what she is, but it's a cool fight. I mean, it looks like a cool fight. I mean, I'm not gonna cap you guys and act like I know a lot about the girl she's fighting, but shout out to Mizuki Hiruta, flying the flag for the women in Japanese boxing. Very talented fighter, probably one of the best women's fighters out there right now. BT Usyk will make Ajit Cabello look like easy work. It's going to be like Garcia fight. He got that. He's got that. Moses, stay away from that man. Listen, man. Moses has to fight someone. I would like to see Mosey Tama fight Ajit Cabello. That'd be a good fight. Or Moses can fight Garcia for the WBA regular title. I feel like those fights make sense. Let Filip Hrgović fight Daniel Dubois. In the rematch, or the rematch world title fight, and then Moses, if Dubois beats Hrgović again, and then let's say Moses gets a regular title, and then if Usyk gets stripped, they can elevate Moses to the full champion. Then boom, you got Moses versus Dubois, unification blockbuster British fight, and if not that, you got Moses versus Filip Hrgović unification fight, right? So the fights are bigger. I feel like there's a better way to do things than the current plans that are being put out in the media. And I actually spoke to Filip Hrgović the other day, briefly on Instagram. Me and him are supposed to do an interview in the next week or so. He's back in Croatia, getting used to life back there. He told me give him a couple of days to get used to life back there, and he'll come on here and we'll have Filip Hrgović the first, because I haven't interviewed. The last Filip Hrgović interview I had was before the Dubois fight. I have not interviewed Filip Hrgović since the Dubois fight. I have not physically seen Filip Hrgović since before the Dubois fight because we just haven't been in the same place. But that's still my guy, and I'm letting y'all know right now. Just as long as it doesn't conflict with Angelo Leo or any of the fighters on Team Angelo Leo. No, if it doesn't conflict. As long as it's in the UK, I will go to any Filip Hrgović fight, whether it's against Mosey Tama and or Daniel Dubois, to support my guy. It's the perfect excuse to go to the UK. You know, that's what I'm saying. Like, I love Usyk. I'm a Usyk fan. I sung Usyk's praises a lot earlier than a lot of people in boxing media in America. Back when he was in the cruiserweight division, because now it's crazy. Like Benavidez is at cruiserweight now, and people like it's a cool division now because of Benavidez, right? But I was covering Usyk when like nobody gave a fuck about him in American boxing media. Like people would say, "Who cares about Murat Garcia versus Usyk and things like that?" But yeah, he's not Klitschko. Klitschko was a dominant, consistent champion. You know, yeah, he didn't have the most exciting style, but of course he didn't have the most exciting style. He got his ass beat by Corey Sanders, you know, and because early in his career he was a combination puncher, you know. Then Emmanuel Stewart got with him, taught him how to fight tall, perfected him leading off that jab, and you know they had the little jab and grab style too, and sometimes made for terrible fights like the Povetkin fight, but he was effective and he reigned, he won, and he's a great champion. I remember BT saying Usyk was pound for pound when everyone said he was a nobody. Exactly, I was saying it back then, and the only person on this channel who gave Usyk more credit than me was my dad, because I remember my dad. There's a video way in the archives. Me and my dad did a video after Usyk's first fight in the heavyweight division against Chaz Witherspoon, and he looked terrible that fight. He looked pedestrian, average, mediocre, and my dad and myself were talking about Usyk versus either Fury or Joshua at that time. And mind you, this is 2019. So, you know, Joshua hadn't lost yet at this particular point. Tyson Fury, he hadn't lost either. And, you know, he had the ESPN deal. You know, his stock was at like these guys' stocks were at an all-time high in and around this time. And people were saying that Usyk had no chance against these guys back then. But back at that time, when it wasn't popular to say, my dad said, "Yo, Usyk's work rate, Usyk's his timing, his skills is too much for these guys," and a lot of people didn't believe. So trust me when I tell you, like, I'm not coming from a place of hatred. We love Usyk here on True School Sports, but it's bullshit that he's fighting a kickboxer. Timu Al Heyman says, Philip Hrgović versus Deontay Wilder. That'd be an interesting fight. You know, that they have history. They was both in the Klitschko camp. You know, Hrgović did pretty good against him, you know, from all accounts. And that was one of the things that kind of grew the early legend of Philip Hrgović. And I'm telling y'all like this, man. I'm standing on my square. I told y'all the first time I made a Philip Hrgović video was 2019. I told y'all back then he was going to be a world champion, and I'm standing on my square. Daniel Dubois, your ass is next. We're coming to get you, champ. Coming to get you. Pops, the OG, he always gives everyone credit. That's what I'm saying. He gives everyone their credit. That's why it's funny, like when Devin Haney comes out on Twitter and, you know, quote tweets me all this bullshit. Speaking of Hrgović, word on the street is that Hrgović versus Itama is near official. Well, it's not official yet. It's not hold on, let me get up. I gotta get my charger. It's not official yet. Philip Hrgović, you know, and Keith Connolly, you know, one of the best managers in boxing, they're gonna explore their options. And Keith Connolly is already on record. He said in a recent interview that they're gonna explore the potential of fighting Daniel Dubois in a rematch for the world title, which personally, like, because y'all know, you know, I've always had a manager and advisor's mind. I'm very into like the whole concept of fighter development and taking fights, the right fights at the right time. I don't think I think Hrgović fighting Dubois right now is the correct move. Not because I'm scared for Hrgović against Mosey Tama, because I know for a fact if the best Philip Hrgović shows up, he can give Mosey Tama all he can handle and then some. He'll snatch that and crush the hype train real fast, because I know what kind of heavyweight he is. But it's not the correct move. Like it's the correct move for Moses, but it doesn't make sense from the Hrgović perspective, because Philip Hrgović has been professional for the better part of a decade now. He's paid his dues. He's fought tough fights, won tough fights, those kind of things. And you know, that Dubois fight has history. It's a potential rematch. Do that fight, you know, do that fight. Kasha says BT Hergovich should consider taking out Big Baby Miller. Daniel Dubois versus Worley 2 is going to take priority. That's next. Like I told you, probably stay away from Moses. Listen, man, like my boy Philip said, and I'm Team Philip Hergovich to the casket drops. Moses didn't make it to the promised land. And if you see a couple of them Philip Hergovich right hand go upside his head, he may not make it to the promised land. Remember, don't forget, the southpaw killer for the orthodox fighter is the straight right hand, and Philip Hergovich is one of the best in boxing at setting up the straight right hand as far as the heavyweights are concerned. So if it's got to be Moses, let it be Moses. This is what James is made of. Now, as far as B.B. Miller, I wouldn't mind that fight. I do know that Philip Hergovich and Joe Miller do have some history from sparring in the South Florida gyms. You know, Miller has a big work rate. You know, Hergovich has been a guy that does tend to fade in the back half of fights at times and really have to grind it out. So, you know, Miller's found a good tune with Bozy Ennis training. I like the Bozy Ennis trained version of Jarrell Miller. So that's a good fight. I wouldn't mind it. I wouldn't mind it. It's not my first option. Truth be told, I'm with the Dubois or the Atama. But if it's got to be Jarrell Miller, then let it be Big Baby as well. I don't know why nobody mentions that Dubois used his head as a battering ram against Hergovich and cut the shit out of him. I mean, I've mentioned it before, but I don't like mentioning it too much because people know that I like Philip Hergovich and that I'm cool with him. So I don't want to come off as biased. But yes, that did happen. That did play a big factor in the fight. I feel like if that didn't happen, you know, it's a much different fight. But again, you know, if we can do ifs and buts till the cows come home. At the end of the day, on that particular night, in that particular fight, the better man that night was Daniel Dubois. And it's okay because God has a plan and we can get the rematch. Hannah Revolt says that he believes that Italma and his team are going to duck the Philip Hergovich fight. It's possible. It's possible. I mean, because you gotta think about it too. I mean, they don't gotta fight Hergovich. I mean, Hergovich is a big name. I think there is a big pathway to beat Philip Hergovich because Moses is that damn talented and he is that damn good, in my opinion. But like, do you have to do it? You gotta understand, like they're grooming this kid to be the next, you know. I don't even want to say Anthony Joshua. Like they're grooming him to be something on a whole different tier than Anthony Joshua. Like he's being groomed like he's like the British Mike Tyson, right? So they don't gotta rush. They don't gotta do all that. They can take their time. There's fights that are more winnable that makes sense for trinkets like Murat Garcia for the regular WBA title. They could do that fight, and then he could beat Murat Garcia, who is a former world champion at cruiserweight. And then boom, if Usyk decides he don't want to fight Moses Itama, who will be his mandatory challenger, then now the WBA will have to elevate and probably will elevate Moses Itama to full champion, just like that. So if you're looking for the path of least resistance and management wise, that's the route you take if you're Moses Itama, not Philip Hergovich. Shout out to my man QC. He says, BT, what's good? It's been a minute. I hope all is well with you and Pops. All is well. All is very exceptional. You know, it's been a very eventful last couple of days with Pops. I don't know if you've seen it, but if you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's been an eventful last couple of days with Pops pressing Keyshawn Davis in Virginia in front of both of his brothers. You know, he pressed Keyshawn Davis in front of DB3, which was kind of crazy. You know, I was a bit worried there for a second. I'm like, damn. They get jumped out here, Albright in the same room. Now we're gonna get jumped, you know. But then Devin Haney, you know, out there quote tweeting me, and then in between all that, in between Devin Haney crashing out on me on Twitter, Keyshawn Davis and my dad going back and forth in Virginia, just making my content, champ, just pressing forward, you know, making sure that everything is going the way it needs to go. You know, getting ready to take my boy Angelo Leo here on a little press tour in Miami at the end of the month in about a week's time. So, you know, a lot of beautiful things are happening in the life of BT and True School. What do you think of Itama? I think Moses Itama is the best fighter in the world, 21 years old or under. I think he's like 21 or 22. He's probably the best young fighter in boxing. He's the truth. The Jermaine Franklin fight told me a lot. I mean, I know people will say like, "Oh well, Jermaine Franklin BT. He's Jermaine Franklin. He's not no world beater." Yeah, that's true. But Jermaine Franklin, he's a sturdy guy. He's a durable, sturdy guy. He's been in there with Joshua. He's been in there with Dillian White. He's been there with a lot of punchers. Ivan Ditchko, taking these guys the distance, made them look bad. Even had a case to win the fight against some of these guys. And when he fought Moses, Moses just fucking ran through him like a knife through butter. Like it was an easy fight. It was like it wasn't supposed to be a walk in the park, but it became a stroll on a smooth summer's day. So, I still want to see him step it up, but that was the fight that sold me really on Moses, because I know what kind of fighter Jermaine Franklin is, and that was a statement. Now I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this right now. Let's just say they go. Let's just say he fights Filip Hrgović next, and let's say he make him look like Jermaine Franklin and runs through him in like 6 rounds or less. I'm telling y'all right now, you gonna have me fully like, because right now I would say with Mosey Tama, I'm like 70%. I'm 70% there. There's that 30% that I'm leaving for skepticism. But he going there, if he beats the brakes off Filip Hrgović in a similar fashion, anything close to Jermaine Franklin, I'm bumping it from 70 to 150. I'm all the way in. Like, Moses' right hook is no, it's very tight. Damn, he says, you do know that Philip and Dave Allen already have the same people who work with Moses. They gave him a layup to introduce him to the British fans before he gets slapped by Moses. Who said he was getting slapped? Who said he was getting slapped, man? What if it's the other way around? Have we put any thoughts into that? Have we put any thoughts into if it's the other way around? I'm just saying. What if it's the other way around? Moses has not fought anybody close to this level. But truthfully speaking, like, look, Moses is a great talent. I like Moses. I love watching him fight. He could beat Philip. Like, unbiased aside, like, I think he could very well beat Hrgović in a devastating fashion. I've said that many times before. The speed advantage is as wide as the Grand Canyon, but speed ain't the end all be all in boxing. Timing, craft, and counterpunching can negate speed. Being able to set up your punches can negate speed, and Filip Hrgović is very good at setting up his punches. So we'll see how it goes. Personally, I think that's the right move. The Moses fight does not make sense from the Hrgović standpoint. Not because he can't beat Moses. He could beat Moses. But you've been in the fight game for 10 years and some change. You paid your dues. You have one loss in your pro career. That one loss is to a guy who happens to hold the belt for the sanctioning body that you're ranked number 2 in. Go that route. You beat Daniel Dubois. Your name's in the history books forever. If Hrgović beats Dubois, he's the first ever Croatian heavyweight champion. Like, that's the type of shit that they're gonna talk about 100 years from now in boxing. That'll be a trivia question. 100 years from now, when we're all dead and gone, and no one thinks about us anymore, when they say who was the first Croatian heavyweight champion, the answer is gonna be Filip Hrgović. So that's what you're fighting for. You're fighting for real deal legacy. The Moses fight is great. Awesome, young fighter on the come up. Let him go fight. Let him go another route. Joel mentioned Itama versus Jared Anderson. Jared Anderson is a Queensberry fighter, and I'm not sure what the plans are for Jared Anderson. Truth be told, I never really thought much of Jared Anderson as a heavyweight. I've always thought he's overrated from the jump. Like, even though I would call him the last American heavyweight hope, I was never sold on Jared Anderson. But I would be led to believe if Jared Anderson's an American fighter and he signed a Queensberry, he can't be a priority. So shit, why don't you do freaking Mosey Tama versus Jared Anderson? Young guys. Yeah, styles make fights. His speed might negate some of that Moses speed, but I just think, look, man, Jared to me just ain't like he don't got it up here. He may have it here, he may have the skills, but he don't got it up here. He does have heart. I'll give him credit for the heart he has, because when he fought Piccoli, he fought in the pocket when he got his ass beat, but he fought in that pocket and he tried his best so he couldn't try no more. But he don't got it up here. He ain't right here. When you see his IQ at display, you'll see what you need to present issues is his movements, Shakur type movement. That's hard to find out where everything else plays in the Moses' game. Yeah, well, I agree with that. I think Moses, from what we've seen, from the way he sets up his shots, you can see the IQ is it's very apparent. I would just say with Hrgovic can move. When he fought Zhang, if you guys remember when he fought Zhang and he had to grind out the second half of the fight, I thought he damn near won. I thought from round 7 to 12 he won 5 of the last 6 rounds of that fight, and maybe 4 if you want to be generous to Zhang. But he won that fight boxing and moving. Now obviously he ain't fast. He's not going to be the fastest guy in the world, but I've been around Philip. I've seen him in the gym. When he actually moves, he's a little faster than it looks like on TV. It's deceptive. He said, "BT, remember the rant when they compared Jared Anderson to Riddick? Oh my God, that's where it all started. That's when I was like, yo, that's when I had to start pushing back on the whole Jared Anderson hype. I'm like, yo, because I take it very disrespectful. Speaking as somebody who has spent a lot of hours of his life learning boxing from Riddick Bowe, like as far as like just the X's and O's of boxing, and then like the man wrapped my hands, like Riddick Bowe wrapped my hands. Riddick Bowe watched me on the damn punching bag. Riddick Bowe, I learned as much boxing from Riddick Bowe as anybody on this earth. Okay, and I'm telling you right now because I know how smart of a fighter and how skillful of a fighter Riddick Bowe was. Yo, I was angry when I was angry beyond comprehension when they would compare Jared Ennis to Riddick Bowe. Straight up, it was disrespectful to a true great of the sport. Oh my God, you trying to get Kelvin hurt? You trying to get Kelvin Davis hurt bad? He don't want that smoke with Jin, especially the Jin that y'all gonna see in the coming camps. Oh my God, because he showed a lot of, even though he got hit a lot and he still fought like a crash out, he did show and he did do some of those things that we worked on in camp. So man, you give him a longer camp in America with Team Leo and his coach Nakaya. Oh man, we're gonna have Jin Sasaki looking like a legitimate like threat in the welterweight division. I can't wait. My man right here says, I hope the guys like Tank and Ryan stay focused and live up to their potential. In boxing, we need them in boxing. They need to shine a light on boxing and bring those unfamiliar. I agree, man. Or what's going to happen is if these guys keep half-stepping and not giving y'all the fights, that boy that boy from Albuquerque, that boy Angelo Leo, going to come through the back door and become one of the biggest stars in the sport. And I'm going to make it my personal business to see it as such. And I'm speaking it into existence right now. Y'all going to see. But yeah, it'd be great if they could all get the shit together and do right for the sport. That's a good fight. I mean, that's a good fight. Delgado versus Matias. I mean, Matias, if they could do it for the title, that'd be amazing. So then Matias could you imagine if Matias became a 3-time champion? Imagine that. Then these guys got to deal with Matias again. Because I'm going to tell you all this. If Super Matias becomes world champion again, I'm going to take it back to 2024 and most of 2025, we're going to have to start asking the questions to these fighters again. When you going to fight Super Matias? When you going to stop being scared of Super Matias? When you going to be like Dalton Smith or Liam Perro? Because apparently the only way you beat Matias is if you're a light skinned 140 pounder. If you're a white, Matias only loses to white 140 pounders. Everyone else is beating up. But if you're a white boy from Australia or England, then you could beat Super Matias. But apparently that's how it goes. Just being funny, but Cassius says, BT, do you know Devin Cushing? No, who's that? Put me on game, champ. Cassius be knowing Cassius knows all these fighters that I never heard of. So sometimes I don't hear about or learn about certain fighters until I get in the comments or get in the messages with Cassius. Talk to me, champ. I'm gonna go 10 more minutes. We're at the 2-hour mark. It's almost 3 a.m. I'm gonna go 10 more minutes, guys. 10 more minutes, and then I'm gonna get up off here because I gotta take a day off tomorrow. I need some rest. I've been busting my ass these last couple of days. So 10 more minutes, guys, and then we'll get up on out of here. But get your comments in, guys. These 2 hours just flew by. I appreciate everybody here who's made this live really fun with the comments and things like that. Not the busiest week of boxing, not the most scintillating week of boxing coming up. You got Amari Jones and a layup fight against Gutierrez on Friday. Maybe I'll go live after that. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do live wise this week, but there will be a couple lives this weekend. I'm not gonna go live during Amari Jones, but maybe I'll go live after Amari Jones. And same thing with Usyk. Who knows? He's a Florida guy. We are about to take out. He's a Florida guy. We're about to take out Jahan Ingram's next opponent. 18-0, 14 knockouts. Nah, I never heard of him. What part of Florida is he from? I never heard of the kid. I seen that. I seen my boy. I seen Juanito Lopez added to that card. Juanito Lopez is a good little fighter. He can punch, but he lost. He really lost the second pro fight to that kid Quiones. That kid beat him. I wish him the best. Good fighter. Hopefully he can fulfill some of the potential and live up to some of the potential, some of the things that his dad did in the sport. BT, I want to believe that Atama will fight Hrgovic, but it doesn't make sense to me for that big of a step up. White to Franklin, straight to Hrgovic seems like too much, unless they think Hrgovic has lost some steps. They definitely do. I can definitely tell you from talking to people in the fight game. And I even be honest, because you guys know I'm not gonna bullshit you when it comes to fighters, even fighters I like. I tell you the truth about Angelo. I'll tell you the truth about Filip Hrgovic. Filip Hrgovic has definitely lost some things in the reflex and even speed departments. Because if you go and you watch Filip Hrgovic, I'm talking about early in his career, even before his career started. You go watch Filip Hrgovic in the World Series of Boxing. He was a lot faster. He was a lot. I would say he had more reflexes, and he's had some tough fights, a lot of stopping and starting, a lot of hard camps. So those things weigh on a fighter. So they definitely think that. But I've been saying it for years, and I'm standing on my square. The best Filip Hrgovic can beat any heavyweight in the world, and that includes Usyk, that includes Moses. And you fuck around and get the right guy in front of him, that guy will show up, and we'll see if those guys, their best is good enough his best. Someone go ahead and find Mark Castro. We need him back. What's going on, Mark Castro? Because Mark Castro, he's Mark Castro. The last I heard of Mark Castro, I remember one time I seen Mark Castro. I think I seen Mark Castro maybe like 2 years ago when I was covering Tank versus Frank Martin. I passed by him at the on my way into the media entrance at the T-Mobile, and I asked him when he was fighting, and he said he was supposed to fight, and he hasn't really fought a ton since I've seen him, or maybe even at all. When was his last fight? He ain't fought at all. He's fought one time. He lost that fight in Puerto Rico, and we ain't seen him since. So who knows? Who knows what Mark Castro's doing? He was a guy that Matchroom Boxing had very high hopes for, and he was a top amateur. He beat a lot of names in amateurs. Is he really? Well, that makes sense. Best of luck to him. I think Filip, before his father's passing and after his father's passing, are different guys. Oh, 1,000%. Knock on wood, man. I hope for a long time I don't gotta experience this, because me and my dad, as you guys know, we're like this. So I can't imagine how I'm going to change for the better or for the worse when that day comes. Hopefully it's not soon. So it's supposed to happen. Filip, from what I've heard in interviews and from my own personal conversations with him, he was very close to his dad. So it's only human, right? And then he's had a kid since then. So those things will change you. But I hold true to what I say. the best Filip Hrgović shows up, that guy can beat anybody on the night. He needs to just go to 47. Like I don't think he's gonna fight Delgado. This guy can't even make the weight for non-title fights. How the hell is he gonna make the weight for an IBF title fight with the rehydration clause? He ain't doing that. He might die. He might kill him. He might, Keyshawn Davis needs to just go to 47. He admitted it himself in the post-fight interview with Chris Mannix that he's not good at making weight. So go to 47. Like you know your limitations. Go to 47 and go run down on Devin Haney. Go run down on on Ryan Garcia. Rolly Romero. Go do those big fights. Go if go try to get those fights done so that you can become all you can possibly do in the sport of boxing. Yeah, and he should, because he can't make the weight. Like you gotta know your limitations as a fighter and as a human being. Like he's not gonna make 40 at all. Like, and then okay, let's say he fights at 140 and he's completely weight drained. He's a skeleton. He's weight drained because of the IBF rehydration clause. You might F run and lose to Lindolfo Delgado. And I'm gonna tell you right now, like I'm not really a big Lindolfo Delgado guy. I thought he's had like 3 fights in his career that I thought he lost. Like Brian Flores, that was the co-main event on Angelo Leo Bernardo Lopez. I was ringside for that fight. I thought he lost that fight. I thought he lost to Elvis. Who else did he fight? Like he's had about 3 fights where you could say he lost the damn fights. That's really what I feel about Lindolfo Delgado. Let me see. It was Brian Flores. It was Brian Flores. It was Elvis Rodriguez. And what was the third one? Gabriel Golas Valenzuela. Three out of his last 4 fights. I legitimately believe that he could have lost 3 out of his last 4 fights. And he's getting these decisions because he's a Mexican Olympian. Top Rank has money invested in him, and he's a Robert Garcia fighter. And Robert Garcia has pull with the powers that be, right? So it's like, I don't have anything against him on a personal level, but like when I just don't like when boxing and the powers that be try to push a guy that's just not the goods. Like he's not the goods. He's a decent fighter. He looked like he could have been the goods out the gate when he was a prospect, but once he stepped it up, he hasn't looked like the goods in a long time. He says, "What are those jackets called? I saw a vid and saw one. Are they like Japanese jackets?" Yeah, this is a Japanese jacket. This is actually I don't know what they're called, but like in Japan, they have different jackets with different colorways for different cities. So like for the city of Osaka, the city of Osaka's official colors are like black and gold. So like if you look on the back of the jacket, it'll say like Osaka and it has like a whole like design. And I bought this at Donkey Honda in Japan for like $40 or whatever it was. So yeah, it's probably one of my favorite jackets. Yeah, Elvis won. Elvis earned that win. Brian Flores earned that win. And Gabriel Golas Valenzuela earned that win. We were talking about it the last live. You have made champions and you have real champions. This one is, see, like Angel Garcia said, you have fighters that were made champion and fighters who became champion. So, like, with all due respect to all the hard work he's put in the gym, Lindolfo Delgado he's lost. He should have multiple losses on his resume, and the only reason he does it is because he has a politics on his side. So if he wins the belt, I'm going to view it as him being made champion. And the only way that he'll be able to shed that label in my eyes, my frivolous opinion, is if he fights someone of a top like level in the 140-pound division and beats the brakes off of him. He's not fighting Devin. I don't think that's gonna happen. His options. I mean, I asked him when I saw him in person in Vegas when he did a Q&A in the MGM Grand Media Room. I asked him. I said, "What about you and Brian Norman Jr.? That seems to make a lot of sense. Y'all are fighting on the same card. Y'all are both from the South. Virginia and Atlanta is very close to each other. So Whether they have the fight in Atlanta or Virginia, I think you get a good crowd supporting both fighters in the arena. That fight to me makes a lot of sense. But Keyshawn pretty much shot it down and said, "Yeah, I like the fight, but he don't got a title. It has to make sense." So if it's not Brian Pillman Jr., then I mean, would he fight a non former world champion with a smaller name? Like, would you see could you see Keyshawn Davis fighting Rohan Polanco or Tiger Johnson? I mean, I don't know. Is he brothers with Tiger Johnson too? Because now I'm getting to a point now with all these fighters who are in the USA boxing pipeline. Like, I gotta keep asking now, are they brothers? Is Keyshawn brothers with Tiger Johnson? Will they not fight each other because they're brothers? Because I just heard Jared Anderson and Richard Torres Jr. say that they're not trying to fight each other anytime soon because they're brothers and they're trying to make each other better. So, do I think that Norman is outgrowing the welterweight limit? Yeah, I do. I think part of the reason why he has very suspect punch resistance at 47 is because of that reason, for sure. Everyone is brothers, BT. Anyone who came up in the Top Rank gym is a brother. I mean, that's a lot. Cassius, I'm sure you've been in the Top Rank gym. That's a lot of people. You get people from all over the world coming into the Top Rank gym. So you're talking about, you got international brothers. You got brothers from Germany. You got brothers from Switzerland. Everyone's your boxing brothers. If that's how we treating it. I mean, that's the case for a lot of punchers. A lot of punchers. A lot of punchers in boxing have durability problems, chin problems, and he's no different. So I'll leave it at that. But guys, I think, let me see. Let me see. I'll go through. I'll make it an even 2 hours and 15 minutes. But Cassius says, BT, they got brothers in Japan, Korea, and everywhere else. I've seen too many of them. It was crazy. I couldn't believe we were talking to and I did some research on the guys that my dad was arguing with. I didn't realize that my dad was arguing with Dorset Barnwell, the former heavyweight, the guy that was like 12-0 and was supposed to fight Trevor Bryan and pulled out against Trevor Bryan. I didn't know. I had no idea that my dad was arguing with Dorset Barnwell that whole time. So that was cool. That was interesting. But yeah, like, it's too much buddy shit in boxing these days. I don't have any thoughts other than the fact that it's just great to see Masamichi Ibuki back in the ring. I haven't really watched a ton of Rene Calixto. But I think based on the little bit I do know, Ibuki should fold him. Liam Paro? If Liam Paro, I'll say that. If Liam Paro can't get that belt, yeah, why not? I don't think they're brothers. And Liam Paro is not with that buddy shit. Like I've met Liam Paro on a couple of occasions. I actually interviewed Liam Paro back in like 2021 when nobody knew who he was. I was probably one of the first American media members to interview Liam Paro. But anyway, Liam Paro is a real warrior. He fought Matias and he fought Hitchens and he fought Yomar Alamo. And he's with the shits. Like he'll fight people. But guys, on that note, I think I'm gonna put the finishing touches on this live because I am getting tired, and believe it or not, I do need to get some rest. And I'm gonna take me a nice rest day tomorrow because I've been busting my ass on this channel the last couple of days. But guys, I appreciate all the support. Keep supporting the channel. We're closing in on 91,000, which means we're closing in on 100,000. A lot of great things coming on True School Sports. Make sure y'all go check out that angelleoapparel.com and go cop some merch, and definitely stay tuned for all the great things we got going on inside True School and beyond True School. So I'm gonna get up on out of here. You guys take care, be blessed, and I'll see you on the next live.